Chapter 46:11. Bai Sheng was a little worried. It was so expensive. Did he really want to buy it? Bai Sheng, you have to be careful about buying a house. At the side, a female colleague in her 30s advised her. Don't be used by others so easily. What's wrong? The female colleague said. I finally understand now. When it comes to buying a house, you have to be clear-headed. A few years ago, the price of houses was going to increase. My husband and my mother-in-law discussed it and decided to buy a house. When I heard that it was good to buy a house, I agreed. My husband is a local and has a house, but it's an old and small house. He sold it to make up for the down payment. But guess what happened when he bought the house? Everyone looked at each other. The female colleague said angrily, my husband asked me to write my mother-in-law's name. At first I didn't understand, so I asked him what he meant. He said that the money for the down payment was from my mother-in-law selling her old house, so it was only right for the house to be written in their name. I can only blame myself for being muddle-headed. At that time I actually thought that what he said made sense, so I acquiesced. However, since this house is written in my mother-in-law's name, they should be the ones paying for it. In the end, right after I gave birth, I had to go back to work immediately and pay off their loan. In the end, this house wasn't mine. Now, I'm being led by the nose by my mother-in-law's family. The more the woman spoke, the angrier she became. Her eyes were red. It was obvious that her words of consolation were from the bottom of her heart. The housing prices in Beijing are so high now. The pressure of paying off the loan every month is not small. Some men marry a wife and don't have a share of the house, but they are clamoring to pay off the loan. Most importantly, in the end, when the loan is almost paid off, the man has an affair. In the end, the one who leaves with nothing is the woman. What bad luck! There was suddenly a wave of resentment in the office. Many of the colleagues were married, and they couldn't help but complain about the unfairness of their in-laws. The more Bai Sheng listened, the more depressed she felt. She didn't like to be in contact with such negative energy. It wasn't that she didn't have empathy, but she couldn't understand why she didn't live a good life and went to the garbage dump to find her husband. Bai Sheng, you have to be careful. If the man asks you to take the loan, don't do it. Bai Hao smiled but didn't say anything. In the afternoon, when Bai Ran was about to get off work, he saw a phaeton parked in the parking lot of the company when he walked to the gate of the company to check in. She didn't recognize the car, but she remembered the license plate number. Bai Ran walked towards the car. Gu Chengzi pushed the door open and got out. He leaned against the car and smiled. Let's go. Bai Yan replied with a and went around to the passenger door. At the entrance of the company, a few colleagues were also going downstairs to clock in and get ready to go home. When they saw Bai Ran get into a car, and when they saw Gu Chengzi get into the same car as her, they felt terrible. That man is so handsome. That's Bai Ran's husband. It's really a phaeton. This man's family owns a mine. Did you see the license plate of his car? Beijing A66666. This license plate is even more expensive than this car. A female colleague sneered. Ha! I think her husband might be a chauffeur. He's the chauffeur of a big boss, driving his boss's car out for a grand occasion. Chapter 46:12. That's right. It's very likely that he's from a car rental company. Didn't Bai Sheng say that her husband is an ordinary white-collar worker? This car has a company license plate, and it's so good. It's either a fake license plate or a boss car. His colleagues began to discuss among themselves. Bai Sheng really knows how to brag. Look at her tone. She said that she wants to buy a house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal. Can she really afford it? Who doesn't know how to brag? It didn't cost anything. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, a male colleague spoke up for Bai Sheng. Maybe Bai Sheng is innocent too. That's right. Bai Sheng is so innocent. She doesn't know anything at all. Didn't you hear what she said? She got married in a flash and met him on a blind date. She doesn't even know that man. At this time, many older women sneered again. Blind date? Io, what's so good about a man you met on a blind date? Exactly. That man is so handsome, and he can even afford to buy a house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal. How many women would want such a man? How could he be reduced to a blind date? On the way, Bai Sheng found a briefcase in the back seat. There were many floor plans of different developers inside. Can I have a look? Yeah, it's for you to see. She was so curious that she picked it up and read it page by page. Is there anything you like? Bai Sheng looked around and still felt that the layout of the Spring River Heavenly Seal was the most satisfactory. However, the unit price of the Spring River Heavenly Seal was extremely expensive. She did not dare to imagine that she could live in a house with the Spring River Heavenly Seal. The apartment is not bad, but it's so expensive. At the crossroad, Gu Changzi stopped the car and said to her, "The Spring River Heavenly Seal is very expensive, but I have an internal discount." Internal discount? How good is the internal discount? Gu Changzi smiled and said, 50% off. Bai Sheng covered his mouth in surprise. 50% off? Yes. So cheap. When you're resting, we'll go to the sales office. If you like it, we'll buy it. Bai Sheng was caught off guard. Wait, aren't you going to look at a few more buildings? Gu Changzi did not think much of it. Aren't you most satisfied with the layout of this place? Yes, I am very satisfied, Gu Changzi said gently. I've seen the Spring River Heavenly Seal's model house. It's exquisitely decorated. Moreover, the developers under Shangyu are also the best in the real estate industry. Yes. That night, someone tagged Bai Sheng in the group chat. Bai Sheng, didn't you want to buy a house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal? I've asked my aunt. The flats with sky gardens will be on sale soon. The unit price will be 250,000 renminbi. The price varies from floor to floor. Do you really want to buy it? The smallest unit in this building was 140 square meters. In this way, one unit would cost more than 20 million. You have to pay a few million for a loan. In other words, can you really afford it? Bai Sheng did not reply. Because she didn't know if she would buy the Spring River Heavenly Seal, she decided to wait a few days before going to the sales office to look at the model houses before making a decision. However, she didn't expect that these colleagues weren't doing it out of concern, but out of amusement. Some people really couldn't bear to see others living better than them. The jealousy between women was often very scary. They just couldn't bear to see that Bai Sheng was prettier than them and luckier than them to marry such a good husband. Therefore, everyone was waiting to see her make a fool of herself. The next day, when Bai Sheng arrived at the company, the female colleague came over. Chapter 46:13. I didn't check my phone yesterday. Bai Yu asked blankly. What's the matter? I asked my aunt yesterday. She said that the Spring River Heavenly Seal's property prices are very high. Are you sure you want to buy it? The problem is that the down payment is a few million. Also, it requires a high credit rating. Bai Yu smiled. Thank you. However, it's not up to me to decide whether to buy it or not. It's still up to my husband. After all, she did not have much money to pay. Bai Yu had always felt guilty about this. She was mentally prepared to work hard to repay the loan if Gu Changzi took a loan to buy the house. Is your aunt one of the higher-ups in the Spring River Heavenly Seal? Yes. The female colleague was obviously a little guilty. What higher-ups? She was just someone from the sales office who brought people to look at houses. Her aunt was older than her, but she was a few years older than her. However, her performance in the sales office was not bad either. The higher-ups she mentioned were just for show. Anyway, Bai Yu would never be able to afford a house in the sales office. Therefore, she said, if you really want to buy it, let me know. I'll contact my aunt and see if she can give you a discount. At the mention of discounts, Bai Yu thought of what Gu Changzi said. 50% discount. Can your aunt give us a discount of less than 50%? For a moment, the entire office was dead silent. Everyone looked at her in surprise. After a while, the office erupted in laughter. Ha 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 ha. 50% discount. Where can you buy a house with a 50% discount? And it's a house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal. Unless you're a relative of the royal family, how can you buy a house at such a low price? The cost isn't even enough. The quality of the houses in the Spring River Heavenly Seal is so high. 50% discount. You must be dreaming. Bai Yu, who told you that there's a 50% discount? You're not being cheated, are you? Bai Yu was a little unhappy when she heard the ridicule. She turned around and faced the computer. She did not want to talk anymore. Someone nudged her. Bai Yu, there are so many ways to cheat people nowadays. Don't trust people so easily. Don't be cheated of millions just to take advantage of others. Exactly. A few million can't buy a house. Bai Yu was so angry that she wanted to ignore them. Gu Chengzi would not lie to her, and there was no reason for him to do so. If he said that it was a house with a 50% discount, he must have some connections. Shengyu Building. In the president's office. Gu Chengzi walked to the door of the office. His assistant was standing by the door. When he saw him, he immediately nodded respectfully. Hello, Mr. Gu. President has been waiting for you for a long time. As the assistant spoke, he opened the door for him. Gu Chengzi walked in and immediately saw the name tag on the desk. Yintianyu. The current Shengyu had already undergone a change of dynasty. Shengyu's former boss, Mu Yaja, was also the company's chairman. When Yun Tianyu was 20 years old, he passed the position to him and traveled the world with Yun Shishir. Yun Tianyu was currently in charge of the Royal Academy. Initially, the board of directors was skeptical of Yun Tianyu's ascension to the CEO's position. But little did they know that handling Xingyu Financial Group's matters was child's play to him. To him, Xingyu was just a supervisor. There are two young masters in the Mu family. Even if the throne is passed down, shouldn't it be the eldest son's turn to ascend the throne? Chapter 46:14. The office desk was neat and tidy, but there was no one in sight. Gu Chengzi scanned his surroundings and saw a man in a black shirt mixing coffee in front of the wine cabinet. He walked over and could smell the aroma of the coffee even from afar. His favorite beverage was cola since he was young. Now, as he grew up, his favorite cola had been replaced by coffee. Hearing footsteps behind him, Yun Tianyu slowly turned around. His thin lips curled into a smile as his gaze landed on the man. What brings you here today? Just as he turned around, a handsome face came into view. It was said that sons took after their mother in terms of looks. This was indeed the case when they were young. However, as they grew up, Yun Tianyu and Muichen's looks gradually changed. When they were young, it was impossible to tell who was who when they stood next to each other. If one did not look at their height and only looked at their appearance, one would not be able to tell the difference. The children's bone structure was extremely similar. However, as they grew up, their appearance changed. Slowly, Muichen looked more and more like Yun Shishir. In the June district, he was a lieutenant. Young and promising, he had a face that was prettier than a woman's. Many ladies in the military eagerly chased after him, but none of them caught his eye. Yun Tianyu, on the other hand, was clearly more handsome than Muichen when he was young, but as he grew up, he gradually resembled Gong Jie and Mu Yaja. Although Gong Jie and Yun Shishir were fraternal twins, Gong Jie's face was obviously more handsome. Yun Tianyu resembled Mu Yaja the most, especially in the shape of his face. It was as if it had been sculpted by a knife. When he stood next to Muichen, he was actually taller than Muichen. When they were young, Muichen had always bragged about his height in front of Yun Tianyu. However, when they were in high school, Yun Tianyu's height increased by leaps and bounds overnight. He actually shot up to 1.7 meters. From then on, his height grew at an insane rate. In one semester, he had grown 10 centimeters taller. During that time, Yun Shishir was so excited that she gave Yun Tianyu calcium supplements and urged him to exercise. During puberty, Yun Tianyu's excess energy was all spent on sports. In the end, Yun Tianyu's sports results were even better than Muichen's. Mu Yaja was 1.88 meters tall, while Gong Jie was 1.9 meters tall. Yun Tianyu had actually grown to 1.91 meters, which was 2 centimeters taller than Muichen. Back then, when Yun Tianyu was still in college at the age of 16, Mu Yaja found it unbelievable when they measured his height to be 1.88 meters. Not long after, he learned that his son had grown to 1.9 meters, so he went around bragging that his son was taller than him. All kinds of boasting. Everyone felt like they had just been F***ed. Damn it, as an old man. His son skipped a grade to go to university at the age of 16. He was bragging about his height. What a boast. What they were envious of was not his height of 1.9 meters but his admission to St. Andrew's University at the age of 16. When Muichen grew up and started secondary school, his brain finally started to develop for the second time. He finally broke free from the awkward period of his childhood IQ deficiency. Yun Shishir teased that Mu Yaja must have secretly topped up Muichen's IQ. After graduating from secondary school, Muichen and Yun Tianyu were admitted to the city's key high school together, and then directly entered the military. At the age of 20, he was already a senior sergeant. Chapter 46:15. Sometimes there would be family gatherings. More than a decade ago, due to an influenza outbreak, the Gu and Mu families became friends. Since then they often held family gatherings, and the children of the two families got to know each other very well. At these gatherings the children and adults formed two different societies. Yun Tianyu and Gu Linqi were together, and both loved to brag about their younger sister. Yun Tianyu loved to boast about how cute Yueyao was, and how she would definitely be a beauty when she grew up. Gu Linqi was not to be outdone and boasted about how gentle and sensible Qianqian was. Muichen and Gu Changze, on the other hand, would brag about how good they were at fighting. When the adults sat together, Mu Yaja and Gu Jinglian boasted the most. Sometimes, when Gong Jia and Hua Jin returned from Dark Wind Island, they would join them in boasting. Chu Ho and Yun Shishir were helpless. They felt that the friendship between the two families was exaggerated. Yun Tianyu, who was leaning back in his chair, widened his eyes in confusion when he heard that Gu Changze wanted to buy a house. You want to buy a house? Yes. The Gu family has so many houses, and every inch of land is worth its weight in gold. With so many properties, why are you buying from me? Gu Changze said disdainfully. It's not like you don't know that my biological father is like a stepfather. Gu Jinglian was especially harsh on Gu Changze. Even the apartment he was living in now was rented from Gu Jinglian and had to pay rent every year. Yun Tianyu sympathized with him. It was said that boys were the least favored in the Gu family. Gu Xinghan, who was the youngest, was treated well. After all, he was still in school, while Gu Linqi and Gu Changze had it worse than the other. Qianqian was different. She was still in school, but she bought all kinds of branded bags one after another. She had just entered high school and was preparing to take the driving test. Yet she had already bought a Maserati. As the saying went, this bowl of water was uneven. In Gu Jinglian's hands, Gu Changze seemed to be picked up from the streets. Gu Changze sighed. Every family has its difficulties. You're not much better off. Yun Tianyu's handsome face fell when he heard that. His biological father was no better than Gu Jinglian. He had just turned 20, but Mu Yaja couldn't wait to hold a board meeting and leave the entire Shengyu to him. Then he hugged his beloved mommy and traveled around the world. This was what the two of them had agreed on. When he grew up, the company would be handed over to him. Afterwards, Yun Shishir also retired from the entertainment industry, and the two of them traveled around the world together. When Yun Tianyu protested, Mu Yaja said cheekily, "If you're not convinced, then hurry up and get married. Give birth to a son as smart as you to take over, and then you'll be free." Even though he appeared to be indignant on the surface, he did not complain at all. He knew that his daddy had doted on his mommy for 20 years. Mommy said that if she wanted a love that would never change, daddy really doted on her for 20 years. What touched him the most was that, 2 years ago, when his mother attended a class reunion, a woman in her 40s, who was of the same age as her, looked extremely old. They also used high-end skincare products to maintain their faces, but no matter how one looked at them, they still looked old. Mommy was different. It was as if she had eaten preservatives. Her face was so tender that it did not change at all. It was not entirely true that there were no changes at all. Chapter 46:16. Could it be that this depended on their youthful mentality? Ever since they got married, Mu Yaja had always doted on her. She had never been bullied before. After being married for so many years, they had never gotten angry even once. Not only did they treat each other with respect, but the longer they were married, the more they behaved like a young couple and slowly developed more interests. Some people said that if they treated each other with respect and did not quarrel after marriage, their love would lose its vitality and passion. Actually, this was not the case. If one could find the person who was perfectly compatible with them in this world, they would tolerate and be loyal to each other. Furthermore, a poor couple had many sorrows. Other than the issues of principle between a couple, most of the disputes between them were trivial. With the Mu family's financial situation, there was no need for them to fuss over daily necessities. Hence, they did not have the chance to quarrel. Most importantly, everyone in the Mu family was dedicated to protecting this family. Be it Muyaja Yun Shirshir Muichen or Yun Tianyu, they all knew how difficult it was for this family to get to where it was now. Hence, every member was protecting each other. During their adolescence, Muichen and Yun Tianyu did not even last long in their rebellious phase. Both of them had gone through life and death situations and cherished each other immensely. Your daddy and mommy went on a trip again? They are out all year round. It just so happened that Yu Yao's exams ended, so they picked up Yu Yao and went on a road trip to Country M. Gu Chengze face-bombed. I'm so envious. Back to the topic. Why are you buying a house? Gu Chengze and Yun Tianyu looked at each other and winked mysteriously. I'm married. Yun Tianyu was so shocked that he almost spat out his coffee. You're married? Yes. Yun Tianyu felt unwell all over. That's why I want to buy a wedding house. Gu Chengze did not forget to remind him. Remember to give me a 50% discount. Who said I'll give you a discount? Yun Tianyu disapproved. I don't remember promising you a discount, Gu Chengze said. Did you forget that you said that if I'm the first to get married, you'll sell the house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal to me at a 50% discount? His expression froze. That time it seemed to be a gathering between him and Gu Chengze. When the alcohol kicked in, Yun Tianyu made a casual promise, and Gu Chengze took it to heart. Gu Chengze laughed evilly. It's settled then. I'll wait for you at the sales office this weekend. Why are you waiting for me? Who has the authority to give a 50% discount in the sales office? Gu Chengze rested his chin on his hands. Seems like only you have this right. Yun Tianyu's eyes turned cold. Ah, right? Gu Chengze furrowed his brows and thought of something else. I remember you promised me that if I was the first to get married, you would give me a house and a Maybach. A Mercedes-Benz Maybach would cost at least 2 million yuan. However, no matter what, the 2 million plus yuan was nothing compared to the 50% discount on the Spring River Heavenly Seal. Yun Tianyu's heart throbbed painfully. Although he was in charge of Shengyu, the difference of more than 10 million yuan was close to 20 million yuan. He had to pay for it himself. Chapter 46:17. Yun Tianyu could no longer hold it in. His handsome face was filled with disdain. Gu Chengze, do you want me to warn you not to push your luck? Don't tell me you're marrying that Maybach just for this house with a 50% discount? Ignoring him, Gu Chengze snapped his fingers. It's settled then. Wait a minute. He cocked a brow. Why? Are you going back on your word? No. Yun Tianyu snorted. I'm a man of my word. I can't possibly ruin my reputation. Anyway, will she be here this weekend too? Who? What do you think? Gu Chengze realized that the boy was referring to was Bai Zai. She'll be here. Are you going to pay in full, or take a loan? Full payment. Yun Tianyu felt a little better now. If this fellow did not pay in full even with a 50% discount, he would definitely kick him out of the office. Leaving Xingyu building, Gu Chengze was secretly pleased at the thought of Yun Tianyu's heartbroken expression earlier. Since they were young, Yun Tianyu had always suppressed and bullied him. Now that he had suffered such a huge loss, he could finally turn the tables. Just as he got into the car, Bai Zai suddenly called. He picked up the call and heard her careful voice on the other end. Hubby, I have something to discuss with you. Her way of addressing him was extremely pleasing to his ears. What's the matter? What's the matter? That? Can we postpone the purchase of the house for now? Bai Zai's hesitant voice made his heart ache inexplicably. He was puzzled. What's the matter? I've asked around. The house at Spring River Heavenly Seal is really expensive. I can't afford it now. I've thought of taking a loan with you, but I'm afraid that I can't afford it. Hubby, it doesn't matter where we live. I just don't want you to bear so much pressure. She finally mustered up her courage and told him her heartfelt thoughts. Her heart ached for him. It was not worth it to bear a debt just to buy a house. Gu Chengze was touched when he heard this. Did this silly girl really think that he was an ordinary salaried worker? However, he did not tell her his identity. Such an intimate nickname was on the tip of his tongue time and again, but he could not bear to say it out loud. He was afraid that she would forget about him. That was one of his concerns. He still hoped that she was with him not because of the memories of their youth. He wanted to start afresh with her. Still, what he said was true. Strictly speaking, He was indeed receiving a salary from Gu Corporation. The position of CEO was only a name for the time being, and it was based on an annual salary. She was a salaried worker with a salary of a few thousand yuan a month. Gu Changza smiled and said, "Who said anything about a loan? I'm going to buy it in full." "Full payment?" "Yes." "With you?" She. Oh. Many local people had to sell their ancestral property to afford a house. Chapter 46:18. Bai Ran stared at the computer screen. Before she could react, a female colleague came up to her. "Bai Ran, have you thought about it? Do you plan to buy a house at the Spring River Heavenly Seal? If you do, I'll ask my aunt if she can give you a discount." She paused and tried to persuade her again. "Don't believe what others say about a 50% discount. That's impossible. How can a house at the Spring River Heavenly Seal be sold at 50%? The developer will lose money." "Oh." Bai Ran's eyes widened in confusion. "But my husband said that he's already booked it. Let's go to the sales office this weekend. If we're satisfied with the layout, we'll buy it." "Really?" At that moment, everyone in the office gathered around. Everyone was shocked that Bai Ran wanted to buy a house at the Spring River Heavenly Seal. Everyone in the company, including the CEO of the design company, was renting a house. A house in the capital was not something that could be bought easily. Without a net worth of tens of millions, who could afford a house in the capital? Even the B-list celebrities in the entertainment industry were renting houses. They could not afford one at all. "Bai Ran, your husband is so rich? The houses at the Spring River Heavenly Seal are all garden-style houses with sky gardens. They're easily hundreds and dozens of flats. They're worth tens of millions." "Exactly. Bai Ran, did you marry a rich second-generation heir? He drives a Phaeton. The license plate is so good. He must be running a company." Some of them were really envious of Bai Ran. Some of them were still suspicious. Bai Ran was obviously bragging. Many of her colleagues in the office dreamed of settling down in the capital. However, the capital was only so big. With so many people squeezing into the capital, those who stayed in the end were the cream of the crop. Bai Ran was annoyed by the questions. "We'll talk about it when the time comes." She was too lazy to explain so much to them. Anyway, since Gu Changza said that he was going to buy it, she would listen to him. After all, buying a house was not up to her. She always felt that she couldn't contribute and felt a little guilty. At that thought, Bai Ran rested her chin on her hand. She was worried about the house. At noon in the cafeteria, Bai Ran sat alone at the table and ate. The others gathered around the table next to her and started whispering. "Do you think Bai Ran's 50% discount house is real? How is that possible? I'm just telling you. I'm just boasting. Do you believe me? Do you really believe it? My aunt said that if they could buy the house at a 50% discount, they would cut off their heads and give them to her. Ha ha ha, do you have to go all out in a bet?" Bai Hao sat aside and vaguely heard them talking about him. She glanced at them and felt nauseous. At first, she thought that these colleagues were genuinely concerned about her, but in the end, they were just waiting to watch a good show. However, she didn't care. She didn't get along well with her colleagues to begin with. Ever since she was young, she had always been a loner. Because of her low self-esteem, she was not good at interacting with others. Therefore, she wasn't close to these colleagues to begin with. She didn't care what these people thought of her. Nowadays, people don't even need to pay for bragging. Exactly. Maybe Bai Yu herself believed it. Do you think her husband of unknown origin is obviously lying to her? Chapter 46:19. As soon as she said that, there was the sound of hurried footsteps. Before the female colleague could finish her sentence, she was grabbed by the collar. She turned her face in astonishment, but Bai Yu had already slapped her. Pa! It was a clean and neat slap. Bai Ran. You hit someone? Why did you hit someone, Bai Ran? The scene was chaotic. The female colleague who was hit was called Ai Fei. She was stunned and her eyes turned red. Bai Ran was livid and defended Ai Fei at the same time. Idiot, why are you acting crazy for no reason? That's right. Why did you hit her? Bai Ran said in a low voice. Because she crossed my bottom line. What bottom line? What did Ai Fei do to you? Bai Ran said with reddened eyes. Talking about someone else's husband behind their back and saying that her husband is a scammer. Does that make you feel superior? AI Faye looked at her in disbelief. She did not expect her ears to be so sharp that she heard it. Byran said angrily, "What's wrong with men on blind dates? Are all men on blind dates trash? Why should my husband be talked about by all of you? AI Faye, do you have nothing better to do?" AI Faye was angry and wronged, but she could not defend herself because she was in the wrong. The next second her tears fell. Byran sneered, "You still feel wronged?" AI Faye stood up and tried to hold back her tears. "Byran, I was just being nice. Didn't your husband say that he can buy a house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal at a 50% discount? Didn't your husband say that he would go this weekend? My aunt is at the Spring River Heavenly Seal. I'll wait for you at the Spring River Heavenly Seal this weekend. If you can buy it at a 50% discount, I'll kowtow to you. If your husband is bragging, then both of you will kneel in front of me." Is that the problem? Byran was confused. Is the problem whether he can afford the house? The problem is, what right do you have to say that my husband is a scammer? Since he's already married, why would he lie to you? If he can't afford a house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal, then he can't afford it. Why is he bragging? If it's not a scammer, then what is it? Wake up. With that, AI Faye kicked the table away, turned around and left. Bai was also enraged. The situation was extremely awkward. The director of the design office suddenly walked over and saw a few people gathered in a circle. Everyone's expression was stiff and he was a little puzzled. What happened? Bai didn't say anything. He turned around and left, leaving the director bewildered. What's going on? Why do you look so unhappy? Who provoked her? She had a fight with AI Faye. Why did you quarrel? A talkative colleague told him about the enmity between Bai Chong and AI Faye. After hearing that, the director couldn't help but smile. How naive. I thought it was a big deal. With that, he shook his head and left as well. Everyone looked at each other. For a moment, they didn't know whether to sit down and continue eating or return to the office. For the entire afternoon, the entire office fell into a dead silence. Ivy had been secretly rolling her eyes. The two of them sat facing each other, separated by the glass railing. Byran immediately went back to work. He drank a cup of coffee and began to draft the design seriously. Chapter 46:20. Byran, why are you so serious about your work? Isn't your husband very rich? Why don't you just stay at home and take care of your husband and children? Let your husband take care of you. Byran buried her head and ignored her. She pretended not to hear anything and continued with her work. What's the meaning of not saying anything? Are you feeling guilty or something? I promised to wait for you at the sales office of the Spring River Heavenly Seal on Friday. Don't disappoint me then. AI Faye, that's enough. One of her colleagues could not stand it anymore and said, Byran is not saying anything. Why are you still talking about this? We're all colleagues and see each other all the time. Forgive and forget. Where it is possible to make mistakes, one should spare them. AI Faye was angry again. Hey, let's get this straight. She slapped me first. What did I do? Why did she do this to me? She slapped me. Who would tolerate it if it were you? Do you think it's easy for you to talk? What's wrong with me? My good intentions were rewarded with a slap. Why should I take this lying down? Byran still did not hear anything. In fact, she would not be angry normally. No matter how others humiliated her, she was used to it. Ever since she was young, she was famous for having a good temper under Yi Yuqin's influence. However, AI Faye had crossed her bottom line. It did not matter how she humiliated her. However, she could not point her sword at Gu Changze. Moreover, did it have anything to do with her whether Gu Changze lied to her or not? Could it be that proving that she married an unreliable husband, a husband who cheated her marriage, could reflect her sense of superiority? Why were there always such women in his life? Why were they always hostile to other women? No matter what, they could not bear to see others living a better life than them. In fact, the grudge between her and AI Faye had been formed long after she had joined the company. Before Byran joined the company, AI Faye was a flower in the design office. Her design skills were not that outstanding, but she was liked by her male colleagues and superiors. She was especially good at talking and sweet-talking. Her male colleagues and superiors all liked her. As for her female colleagues, she was not so polite. However, because she had a good relationship with her boss, none of the female colleagues in the office dared to offend her. Instead, they would deliberately curry favor with her. However, after Byran entered this company, this twisted relationship between colleagues was broken. Many male colleagues fell in love with this innocent and beautiful girl. Everyone knew that Ai Fei was actually very scheming. Her words to please them were all against her heart. But that was how society was. Everyone would rather listen to false flattery. Byran, on the other hand, did not know how to deal with her colleagues. However, her natural and straightforward personality made her quite popular among her colleagues. However, many female colleagues did not like her. Jealousy between women was always unreasonable. Although looks were innate and there was no way to compare, Byran had become the public enemy of his female colleagues because of his appearance. However, Bai was already used to it. Ai Fei suddenly kicked her chair. "I'm talking to you. Do you hear me? Also, I'll be waiting for you at the sales office of the Spring River, Heavenly Seal on Friday. If you know what's good for you, you'd better apologize to me now." She was trying to establish her dominance. Chapter 46:21. Ai Fei raised her eyebrows disapprovingly. Why? Why are you staring at me like that?" She smiled and said casually, "You've really put in a lot of effort to prove to me that you're not doing well." Ai Fei's face almost fell. She snorted coldly and did not say anything else. She lowered her head and continued to play with her phone. After work, Bai Yan punched her card in loneliness. As usual, Gu Chengze was waiting for her at the entrance of the company. Bai Yan walked to the car. Gu Chengze smiled at her but saw that she did not look well. His expression froze. "What's wrong?" The disappointment on Bai Yan's face made his heart ache. "Nothing." Bai Yan hugged him. She did not know if she was feeling sorry for him or for herself. She felt sorry for him. He had been working hard to be a good husband and took good care of her. However, for some reason, he was being slandered behind her back by her outrageous colleagues. She felt sorry for herself. She had worked so hard, but in the end she could not get anything good from others. She was like a star in the design office. Her design drafts were always the most important for every order. However, it seemed that many people could not tolerate her. It was really unfair. Gu Chengze noticed something on her face, but he was not in a hurry to ask. Instead, he said, "Let's talk in the car, okay?" "Okay." Bai Yan obediently got into the car. She did not speak along the way, and Gu Chengze was not in a hurry to speak either. When they reached home, he held her hand and went into the room. He carried her to sit on his lap. "What's wrong? Is there something on your mind?" Bai Yan smiled bitterly. "No. Clearly there is." Gu Chengze's heart ached for her. "What's on your mind? Why don't you tell me? Maybe I can help you solve it?" "It's nothing serious. Did you have a conflict with your colleagues?" Gu Chengze guessed it immediately. Especially when he saw her flickering eyes, he was sure of it. Other than that, he could not think of any other possibility. She went to the company happily, but when she came back, she had such an expression. She must have suffered some grievances at the company. His tone was so gentle that Bai Yan could feel his affection. She felt wronged and her eyes reddened. She felt wrong for him. He was so good. Why should he be criticized because of her? "I'm sorry." Her inexplicable apology made him a little flustered. "What's going on?" "I had a conflict with a female colleague today. She didn't want to hide it from him, so she confessed. She said that you were lying to me when you said that you wanted to buy a house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal. It's impossible to buy a house there at a 50% discount. She said that you were lying to me, and I slapped her in anger. I can't stand her talking about you like that." Bai Hao lifted his head. "I don't care if you're lying to me or not. She doesn't have the right to criticize. So she argued with me." Hearing this, Gu Chengze heaved a sigh of relief. So it was because of this. He thought it was a big deal. However, this silly girl had actually fought with others in order to protect her. He really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Amazing. I'm Shang'er. You look like a little white rabbit. I didn't expect you to be able to scratch people when you're angry." Bai Hao frowned. "You're still laughing?" She said that she'll be waiting for us at the Spring River Heavenly Seal sales office on Friday. Chapter 46:22. Why is she waiting for us? Byran explained. She doesn't believe that you can buy a house at a 50% discount. Let her be. Gu Chengzi did not take her seriously. It's not worth getting angry over this kind of person. Byran was surprised. You're not angry? Was he so good-tempered? Gu Chengzi smiled and rubbed her head. I'm angry. Why was he smiling when he was obviously angry? Why are you smiling when you're angry? I'm angry at her, but I don't like to bring my anger home because of someone else. Especially in front of Madam. If he was angry because of this, Byran would feel even more guilty. Since he was young, Chu Ho had taught him one thing. No matter what kind of anger he suffered outside, don't bring it home. You can talk, but you can't complain. Home is a harbor, but it's not a trash can. The harmony of a family needs to be maintained together. He had remembered this since he was young. Then, Byran asked tentatively, are we still going this weekend? Yes, of course. Why wouldn't we go? Gu Chengzi did not think much of it. I've already made an appointment to buy it. Byran was worried that if she bumped into Ai Fei and her aunt on the weekend, it would be another war. I know what you're worried about. Don't be afraid, I have a way to solve it. Gu Chengzi rubbed her head lovingly. You just have to wait for the signature obediently. Signature? Bai Hao was bewildered. Sign what? The property contract. Gu Chengzi did not know whether to laugh or cry. You need to sign a contract to buy a house. Don't you want to sign it? No, no, no. Byran quickly waved her hand. I'd better not sign it. This time Gu Chengzi was really dumbfounded. What? He suddenly held her face in his hands and knocked on her head seriously. Byran slapped his hand away. What are you doing? Gu Chengzi said seriously. I'm trying to see if there's a brain in your head. Byran was speechless. Was he mocking her for being stupid? I just feel that I didn't do anything. It's a little embarrassing to sign my name. It doesn't matter if you write it or not. You have a share in the house. We are married, so this is considered a joint property. You can't escape. Bai Hao was even more confused. Then why do I have to sign it? Ritual. Gu Chengzi didn't think much of it. I think that the real estate certificate needs to have 2 names on it. Only then will it feel like a family ceremony. Ugh. Byran nodded. Then I will work hard to earn money to support my family. Idiot. He should be the one raising her. With such a small body, he still wanted to compete with him to be the head of the family. Dream on. Bai Hao suddenly hugged him. Did I cause trouble for you? Gu Chengzi said seriously. Even if you're a troublemaker, you're still my wife. You're my wife. Bai Hao was amused by his serious tone. Ha ha ha. She laughed for a while then suddenly sighed. Gu Chengzi was caught off guard by her emotional roller coaster. Why are you sighing? Do you know? Byran suddenly hugged him tightly. I haven't known you for long and we just got married. However, since we were young, you were the one who treated me the best. He couldn't believe it. Chapter 46:23. Hearing him call her his wife, Bai Yu blushed. She lowered her head, a little embarrassed to let Gu Chengzi see her red face. However, Gu Chengzi had the intention to tease her. He held her chin and lifted it up. Wife, why is your face red? Are you teasing me on purpose? Bai Yu was so angry that she laughed and punched his shoulder with her small fist. Gu Chengzi immediately covered his shoulder and pretended. Ouch, it hurts, it hurts. You're still pretending. Bai Yu was even more amused and chased after him. Gu Chengzi ran to the sofa and held a pillow defensively. Bai Yu also picked up a pillow and threw it at him. Even if it was a soft pillow in his hand, Gu Chengzi could not bear to fight back. He was smashed by her all the way. The two of them were messing around. Okay, stop messing around. Gu Chengzi took advantage of the moment when she relaxed and hugged her from behind. Bai Hao was panting and panting because he had messed around with Shi Yan. His face was flushed and he was sweating. As Shi Yan hugged him from behind, he didn't know what to do. You. Don't move. Gu Chengzi hugged her tightly. Even if she wanted to move, she could not do it. I want to call you okay? Wu Baikun was a little stunned by this affectionate address. Yor was her childhood nickname. Such a nickname seemed to be a bit too old. I like to call you you. Gu Chengze leaned his chin gently on her shoulder. But you still have to call me Lord Hubby. Why do you have to add Lord after Hubby? That's the only way to show my status. Usually, people who emphasize their status usually don't have it. You know the truth. After Bai Yu's summary, Gu Chengze also realized that this was indeed the case. During family dinners, Gu Jinglian and Mu Yaja would sit together. The two men would always brag about their status in the family. But in reality, Gu Jinglian's status in the Gu family was decreasing day by day. Now he was only a few ranks higher than him. It was said that it was not like this when they first got married. At that time, according to Chu Ho, Gu Jinglian was a rather cold and violent person. It was only after he got married, especially after Qian was born, that Gu Jinglian became more and more like a well-tamed brain. He gradually lost his temper. The one from the Mu family was definitely not any better. The Mu family and the Gu family were the same. Generally, there was an abundance of yin and a decline of yang. Other than being outside, men had no status at home. Only during family banquets would the two of them sit together and brag about their status. In the end, they would be dragged away by their respective wives. For some reason, Gu Chengze had a strong premonition. He felt that he would end up like Gu Jinglian in the future. However, as long as this person was an idiot, he could do anything. Gu Chengze was already mentally prepared. The day after tomorrow is the weekend. Are you still going to work tomorrow? Bai Hao shook his head. Rest. Our company is closed on the weekend, and the draft is just due. I have already submitted the design drawings, so I don't have to go to work tomorrow. Didn't I hear that design companies are very busy? I'm a very efficient designer. Chapter 46-24. Then prepare the documents tomorrow. On the weekend we'll go to the sales office. If we like it, we'll book it immediately. Okay. Bai Ran was very touched and suddenly said, Thank you. What are you thanking me for? Bai Ran turned around and looked at him with red eyes. Thank you for letting the lights in this city belong to me. Thank you for giving me a home. When Gu Chengze heard this, he suddenly laughed. Isn't this what I should do? No one's sacrifice is deserved. Bai Ran said seriously, I will cherish you even more. Silly. Gu Chengze rubbed her head. All girls in the world should be pampered. Isn't that right? Bai Ran hugged his waist and closed her eyes, listening to his powerful heartbeat. Perhaps it was at this moment that her heart was truly moved by love. Oh right, go to the sales office this weekend. I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. Friend? On the weekend, Gu Chengze had already prepared breakfast and was waiting for her to wake up early in the morning. Bai Ran got up and ate breakfast, then dressed up and prepared to go out. She completely forgot about Ai Fei's words until she entered the sales office and saw Ai Fei sitting on the sofa. Only then did she suddenly remember that there was such a matter. Ai Fei originally thought that Bai Ran would definitely not come. She would just treat it as a visit and play and prepare to leave in the afternoon. However, when Bai Ran appeared at the sales office, Ai Fei stared at her for a while, but Bai Ran did not even notice her. Until Ai Fei walked over and called out to her. Hey! Bai Ran turned her head and saw Ai Fei. Only then did she remember the bet between Ai Fei and her. Although it was a one-sided bet. You really came? Ai Fei looked at her with disdain and glanced behind her. However, when her gaze landed on Gu Chengze's body, her expression froze because of his unparalleled good looks. It was not that she had never seen Gu Chengze before, but she had only seen him from afar. The man quickly got into the car. However, she did not expect to see this man so close. Oh my God, wasn't he too handsome? Ai Fei looked at Bai Ran in disbelief. Was she worthy of such a man? Bai Ran didn't like the way Ai Fei was staring at Gu Chengze. She asked coldly, Ai Fei, what are you trying to say? Nothing. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Didn't you say you could buy a house here at a 50% discount? My aunt said that if she could buy it at a 50% discount, she would buy it too. When Bai Kun heard this, he did not speak. She didn't want to talk to her, let alone this rude request. Bai Ran tugged at Gu Chengze's sleeve and said to her, Let's go. Yes. Gu Chengze allowed her to lead him to the sand table. Ai Fei couldn't stand Bai Hao's neglect. He shouted angrily. By how you don't have to run away. Since he was bragging, he should just admit it. What was the point of running away now? Since you're already here, why don't you explain? By how looked back expressionlessly. Ai Fei, do you really want to prove that I'm not as good as you? Among women there was a kind of jealousy. It was I hope you live well, but don't live better than me. Of course Ai Fei belonged to this category. Chapter 46-25. Gu Chengze had maintained a good demeanor. Such gentlemanly etiquette was cultivated from a young age. It had become a kind of elegance that was ingrained in his bones. Even though Ai Fei provoked him time and time again, Gu Chengze was indifferent. He did not even show any signs of anger. Some people were really not worthy of him lowering himself to teach them a lesson. Ai Fei was not on the same level as him. He did not even take her seriously. Gu Chengze said, "Is there no one to serve them?" Ai Fei immediately said, "There is." She turned around and said to a middle-aged woman, "Auntie, come here." The middle-aged woman walked over and followed Ai Fei's gaze to Gu Chengze and Bai Ran. She immediately understood. Ai Fei, are these the colleague and her husband you were talking about? Yeah. Ai Fei nodded and said, "Auntie, they said they want to buy a house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal, but you have to give them a 50% discount." As soon as she said that, all the salespeople in the sales office could not help but laugh. A man burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha ha. 50% discount house? Where is it? I want to buy it too." "That's right. 50% discount house. Tell me and I'll pay the full price." Young people these days are really good at bargaining. 50% discount house? Why don't they go to Luolai Home Textiles? Aren't there beds and pillows in the Home Textiles exhibition hall? It's possible to lie on the bed and hug the pillow while daydreaming. The group of salespeople discussed animatedly. They obviously looked down on Gu Chengze and Bai Ran. 50% discount house? It was indeed a big joke. Bai Ran was shaking with anger. Ai Fei was obviously trying to embarrass her in front of the entire sales office. However, it was fine to target her, but why did she have to involve Gu Chengze? Just as Bai Ran was about to take a step forward, Gu Chengze grabbed her hand and pulled her behind him. "Ranner." Bai Ran looked at him in shock, only to see Gu Chengze's gaze turn cold. His eyes were locked on Ai Fei as he asked slowly, "Are you a salesperson here?" "My auntie is." "Are you?" Gu Chengze's tone was elegant. He was not particularly loud, but there was a sense of authority that could not be questioned. This kind of awe-inspiring posture was definitely not something that could be trained overnight. Ai Fei was stunned by his aura and could not say a word for a while. Bai Ran said to Gu Chengze, "She is my colleague Ai Fei. She told me that her auntie is one of the higher-ups here." Gu Chengze raised his eyebrows. "Who's her aunt?" The middle-aged woman immediately stood up. "I am. My name is Ai Mingyun." As she spoke, she even symbolically handed over a business card, but it was handed over casually with one hand. This meant that she did not take Gu Chengze seriously at all. Hearing this, Gu Chengze didn't reach out to take it. He glanced at her coldly and said, "Oh, strange. When did a salesperson?" "Huh. Oh. How?" Aunt Ai Fei was furious. "Of the Gu. What does it have to do with you whether I'm in the upper management or not?" "Then why are you blindly comparing things?" Gu Chengze said. "Is this quality worthy of serving customers? I think the sales office should lay off a lot of people." Chapter 46-26. Gu Chengze did not even look at him. "I'm a client. I'm here to buy a house, not to listen to your nonsense. Now please give me the floor plan." "You want the floor plan, right?" Ai Mingyun turned around, took the floor plan and threw it at him. "Here. Take a look." The floor plan was thrown at Gu Chengze's face. Bai Hao took in a cold breath. When he turned around to look at Ai Fei, his eyes were bloodshot. "What are you doing?" Didn't he want to see the floor plan? Ai Mingyun was furious. "Why are you acting all high and mighty at such a young age? A house with a 50% discount? I'll teach you a lesson today. There's no free lunch in this world. A house with a 50% discount? Dream on." Ai Mingyun heard from her niece that someone wanted to buy a house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal but wanted a 50% discount. She found it unbelievable. A house with a 50% discount? How could the Spring River Heavenly Seal be sold at a 50% discount? Gu Chengze closed his eyes and looked at the floor plan on the floor. He said coldly, "Pick it up." The group of people looked at each other in dismay. They were actually stunned by his majestic aura. This man was so imposing. However, they had also heard about Bai Ran from AI Fei, and they were also dismissive of the 50% discount. Therefore, they did not take Gu Chengze seriously at all. However, Gu Chengze's aura made them a little flustered. They felt that this man did not seem like someone who would lie. "What's going on?" The sales director's angry voice came from the side. "What are you doing? All of you are crowding around here." "Good morning, Director." "Good morning, Director." AI Mingyun immediately went up and bowed respectfully. She smiled flatteringly. "Director, I'm sorry. Someone is here to cause trouble. It's a pity that I don't have the authority to chase him out." "Cause trouble?" The sales director looked at the direction AI Mingyun was pointing at and looked at Gu Chengze and Bai Ran. "What's going on?" "This man said that he wants to buy a house in the Spring River Heavenly Seal at a 50% discount." "Director, you know very well that it's impossible to buy a house with a 50% discount. I think they're here to cause trouble." However, to everyone's surprise, the sales director looked at Gu Chengze when he heard about this and walked over to him cautiously. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Gu Chengze?" Yes. The sales director's face instantly turned pale. He was so scared that he quivered. It's over. Just now he had received a call from the higher-ups, saying that the CEO would be making a special trip today. It was said that the CEO's friend wanted to buy a house and wanted to give the company the best price. The CEO would personally cover the difference. This meant that this guest must be a very important one. After knowing Gu Chengze's name, the sales director was also a smart person. She immediately thought of the eldest son of the Gu family. His name was also Gu Chengze. Could it be? It was the Gu clan's eldest young master himself? The sales director's face turned green. Seeing his pale face, AI Mingyun panicked and realized that the situation was not good. "Mr. Gu, it's you. Why are you here so early? President Yun hasn't arrived yet?" "President Yun." Everyone's expression changed. Everyone knew that the person in charge of Shengyu Financial Group was Yun Tianyu. Chapter 46-27. AI Fei and AI Mingyun's expressions changed even more. Originally, she was waiting to see Bai Ran and Gu Chengze make a fool of themselves. In the end, it seemed like that was not the case at all. They looked on helplessly as the director respectfully invited Gu Chengze and Bai Ran into the VIP room. They were in a bad mood. Oh my God. AI Mingyun was a little flustered. She did not know if she had offended any big shots. Perhaps her husband was really capable. Otherwise, why would the director treat them so well? At the side, a few sales representatives surrounded her. "Mingyun, what's going on? Didn't you tell us that someone was going to come to the sales office to put on airs today? That's why we were so cooperative. What's going on now? They seem to be really rich." "That's not necessarily true, but it's true that they have connections. Otherwise, how would they know the big boss of Shengyu? Director Yun, that's the future heir of Shengyu. Now almost all of Shengyu's real power has been transferred to him." They actually know Director Yun? This time, everyone began to panic. This was too unbelievable. Mingyun explained. "What's wrong with your niece? She came to harm us and even caused us to offend such a big shot. If it's true, then we won't be able to keep our jobs." One had to know that it was extremely rare to be able to enter the Spring River Heavenly Seal and become a qualified salesperson. The elites of the Shengyu Financial Group gathered, and the real estate branch under it had the best benefits in all the real estate industry. Not only was the commission high, but the base salary was also high. They also had more holidays and holidays. This was simply a golden rice bowl. If the sales were done well, there would be a lot of room for appreciation in the future. There were more internal transfers within the corporation, and there were also more job choices. To be able to enter the Spring River Heavenly Seal sales office, they wished they could sharpen their brains and fight their way out. In the end, after encountering such a thing, they would probably lose their jobs. Everyone began to tremble with fear. "Mingyun, what do you say? Say something." AI Mingyun was being criticized by everyone. She turned around and looked at her niece with a panicked expression. AI Fei, what's going on? I don't understand. Didn't you say that they were bragging? Auntie, I also asked you. I asked you if I could buy a house with a 50% discount. Didn't you say it was impossible? I was sure that they were talking nonsense. AI Fei was also very innocent. Besides, if she really had some background, why would she come to work? If it were her, she would be able to enjoy the fruits of her labor at home, and not have to go to work if she had a husband who was a senior executive of the Shengyu Corporation. Wouldn't it be great to eat, drink, and play every day? Why would he still need to work? AI Fei, don't you want to find out who he is? Exactly. What are you going to say if we lose our jobs because of this? A group of people surrounded AI Fei. Panic was written all over their faces. AI Fei was even more at a loss. She looked at AI Mengyun and wanted to cry but had no tears. What are you all doing here? The general manager of sales scolded him from behind. Everyone turned around and saw the sales manager and a group of bodyguards escorting a handsome man over. Chapter 46:28. Sometimes men were really unscientific creatures. They were not like women who always used skincare products and did not pay attention to their skincare. Yet they appeared much younger than their actual age. Most importantly, Yun Tianyu was born with a delicate baby face. It was not that his face was as adorable as a baby's, but he was clearly in his 20s, yet he looked like an 18-year-old high school student. In addition, he did not like to wear suits and preferred to wear casual and comfortable clothes. He was not a person who paid much attention to his clothes. The most annoying thing was to think about what to wear when he went out every day. Therefore, once he came across clothes that he liked, he would buy more than 10 pieces at once. Compared to Yun Tianyu, Mui Chen paid more attention to his appearance after he grew up. Yun Tianyu always complained that he dressed up fancily when he went out every day. Actually, it was not fancily dressed. It was just that he dressed more exquisitely than him. However, no matter how simple his attire was, it could not hide his good looks. The moment Yun Tianyu walked in with the crowd, many people in the hall were shocked. This was the first time they saw Yun Tianyu in person. It was all thanks to Gu Chengze. Otherwise, how could they see the president's face in person? This is the president of Shengyu Financial Group. Are you for real? This man looks way too young, doesn't he? If not for his posture and extravagance, I would think that he is someone's son. Oh God! Only when the group of people saw him enter the VIP lounge did they regain their senses. Oh God! Bai Ran and Gu Chengze really knew Shengyu's president. Ah, yeah. When Yun Tianyu walked into the VIP room, he saw the director repeatedly apologizing to Gu Chengze. He frowned and asked quizzically, "What's wrong?" Bai Ran raised her head and saw a handsome young man walking in. She thought that he was someone who had just graduated from high school. But when she saw him greet Gu Chengze with a clear and mature voice, she realized that this man was in his 20s. He should be the friend that Gu Chengze mentioned, right? It was said that he was a senior executive in Shengyu Financial Group. As for his position, she did not ask too much. She didn't ask and Gu Chengze didn't say anything either. However, from the way he was treated, it seemed like his position wasn't low. Gu Chengze was infuriated at the sight of Yun Tianyu. The reception at the Spring River Royal Seal's sales office is too lacking. Yun Tianyu raised a brow. What's wrong? When I said that I wanted to buy a house with a 50% discount, they mocked and ridiculed me. The experience was terrible. Hearing this, Yun Tianyu's face darkened slightly. He glanced sideways at the general manager, who immediately understood what was going on. Don't worry, Director Yun. I'll handle it well. With that, he bowed and left. Yun Tianyu sat opposite the man and lamented. Buying a house at a 50% discount is indeed a joke. Selling the Spring River Heavenly Seal to you at a 50% discount is equivalent to a pie falling from the sky. Hearing this, Gu Chengze's mood instantly improved. It's been hard on you. Yun Tianyu's lips curled into a smile. His gaze then landed on Bai Zhe, who was standing at the side. At a glance, he felt as if he had seen him somewhere before. Where have I seen him before? I remember now. Chapter 46:29. He sized her up, and the latter noticed his scrutinizing gaze. For a moment, she became even more nervous. What's wrong? Bai Ran tugged at Gu Chang's sleeve gently and asked carefully, "Why does he keep staring at me?" Yin Tianyu chuckled. "Because you're pretty." Ah. She felt awkward for a moment. She had clearly lowered her voice, but she did not expect him to hear it. He actually answered her so bluntly. Her face turned even redder. Just as they were talking, someone knocked on the door. Yin Tianyu turned around. "Come in." Just as he said that, the director walked in quietly and cleared his throat. I've done a head count. How should we deal with these 10 employees who offended Master Gu and young Madam Gu? They want to apologize personally, but I'm not sure if Master Gu is willing to do so. Gu Changza calmly replied, "I'm not willing." They had the freedom to apologize, but he also had the right to refuse to accept it. Not all mistakes could be summed up with 1 or 2 apologies. There were some things that caused harm that apologies were useless. Then how should we deal with them? Yun Tianyu curled his lips and said, "Let's do it according to the old rules." Gu Cheng's interest was piqued when he heard that. The old rules. In Shengyu, where the elites gathered, the reward and punishment system was very clear. After Yun Tianyu took over as the CEO, he redefined the reward and punishment system. The employee's income and base salary might not be high, but the commission and bonus based on their performance were very impressive. As an employee of the Spring River Heavenly Seal, especially in the sales department, their base salary might only be 3,000 yuan, but they would receive a commission every month, which would be tens of thousands of yuan. Selling houses in the Spring River Heavenly Seal, their annual income would easily exceed 10,000 yuan. However, the punishment system was based on the deduction of the bonus. Once a principled mistake was made, the company would humanely give the employee 2 choices. 1. Deduct a year's worth of bonus and commission. Spring River Royal Seal's sales department only gave out 20% of the commission every month, and it would be paid in one lump sum at the end of the year. Hence, if a year's worth of bonus and commission were deducted directly, it would be a huge loss. Would it not hurt to have a few 100,000 yuan deducted at once? The second situation was that the company would give out 50% of the commission, and the employee would take this money and leave. The company would fire the employee. One was a loss of hundreds of thousands while the other was a loss of a golden rice bowl. It was hard to choose between left and right. To an employee, this was undoubtedly a great torture. Hearing this, the director immediately nodded and left. He went to the sales lobby and announced the matter to a group of guilty employees. What? AI Mengyun's reaction was the biggest. This is too hard to choose. One is a loss of at least a few 100,000 yuan, and the other is directly fired. How are we supposed to choose? The director said calmly, "Dream clouds, you don't have this problem." Oh. When AI Mengyun heard this, her emotions immediately eased a little. "I don't need to be punished?" The director said, "You're fired." What? AI Mengyun jumped up again. "I was fired?" The director said, "Yes, the CEO said that you can pack your things in the afternoon. You don't have to come to work tomorrow." AI Mengyun was dumbfounded. Chapter 46:30. After a pause, the director explained, "Oh, you've violated the company's rules and regulations. According to the rules, you won't be able to get your bonus and commission starting from January this year. Next month, your basic salary for this month will be sent to your account." "I don't accept it." AI Mengyun jumped up to protest. This was a big deal. One had to know that in order to join the company, she had to rely on a lot of connections to be able to enter the Spring River Heavenly Seal. In January this year, her performance had broken a new record, and she was the sales champion of the real estate sales office. After that, she sold many villas for the next few months. Therefore, in the real estate sales office, she was very favored by the leaders. It was fine if she was fired, but if her bonus and commission were deducted, it would not be just a few 100,000, but more than 2 million commission. More than 2 million. She was going to buy a house this year. This 2 million was waiting for the end of the year to make up for the down payment. If it was deducted all at once, what would she do about the down payment? Just this month, she had already signed the subscription form at the real estate sales office and paid a deposit of 500,000. If she could not make the down payment at the end of the year, then the deposit of 500,000 would not be available because of the breach of contract. This Ai Mingyun almost cried out. Why am I the only one who has to accept such a cruel punishment? Hasn't the company always boasted of being humane? Mengyun, you have to ask yourself this question. You don't cherish your good job. It's fine if you offend people yourself, but how many colleagues have you implicated? The director sneered. If it weren't for you fanning the flames everywhere, would today's matter have been blown out of proportion? Mengyun was very guilty, but she still begged. Director, can you help me ask the president to be lenient? At least don't be so cruel. Deducting it all at once will cost a few million. Who can be blamed for this? It's all your own fault. At the side, the other colleagues were also complaining. Mengyun, it's fine if you're fired, but you're implicating us? That's right. If it weren't for you, would we have been punished? Director, can you ask the president to make an exception? At least don't deduct so much of our bonus. Even if it's 10% or 20% less, it's fine. Sob, 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 sob. There were already female colleagues who were so sad that they were crying. Sob, sob, sob. I was the champion last month. I've deducted a year's worth of hard-earned money. The most stringent thing about this system was that even if one had to deduct an entire year's commission, one still had to work hard in the second half of the year. Every month there would be performance standards and assessments. If they didn't meet the standards, they would be eliminated. The competition in the sales industry was very intense. Survival of the fittest. This female colleague worked very hard for the sake of her performance. Sometimes when she was meeting with clients, those old men would touch her. She would bite her teeth and swallow her blood. She endured everything. In order to sell a villa, he had even sacrificed his own body. That big boss said that he could buy a villa, but she had to be his mistress. She didn't want to be a mistress. She accompanied the big boss on a business trip for a few days and told him everything. It wasn't easy for them to finalize this villa and get the best sales of the month. Just the commission alone was 3 million yuan. One had to know that the total price of a villa in the Spring River, Heavenly Seal, was easily over 100 million. Chapter 46:31. However, if she chose to get a commission, she would not be willing to give up such a good job at the Spring River Heavenly Seal. One had to know that the Xingyu Financial Group was a stage with a lot of room for advancement. She was not willing to give up such a good opportunity. Just thinking about it made her heart ache. Why else would there be a saying that trouble comes from the mouth? These words were not without reason. Trouble comes from the mouth. Just by opening and closing his mouth, he had already brought disaster upon himself. Mengyun glanced at Fei with red eyes. Seeing her standing there innocently with her head lowered and not even daring to look at her, she was so angry that her entire body trembled. Fei, how can you harm your aunt like this? Aunt, I don't know what's going on either. Aren't you Bai Yan's colleague? Since you're colleagues, you should at least have some relationship with her. If you plead with her and she says something, perhaps everything will be fine? Mengyun held on to her last hope. However, Fei felt awkward. Do you want me to apologize to her? On what basis? Fei had always been used to being high and mighty. If she had to apologize to Bai Yan, wouldn't she be embarrassed? However, Mengyun could not stand it anymore. Fei, let me tell you. Your apology concerns the interests of so many of us. You have to know that if you sincerely apologize to her, we won't have to lose so much. Is your face more important or the jobs of so many of us more important? Her words resonated with the crowd. That's right. Fei, if you hadn't come here to harm others, would we have been so unlucky? You have to bear the consequences of your own actions. That's right. If you don't apologize, don't even think about walking out of this sales hall today. If I don't have this job, you won't have a good life either. Everyone was filled with righteous indignation. If this was because of a mistake at work, they could not blame others. However, if they lost their jobs because of Fei, they would attract public anger. All of them glared at Fei as if they could eat her up. Fei was really afraid, but she had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, I can only try. But whether or not the other party accepts the apology is another matter altogether. Oh, don't give me that. As long as your attitude is more sincere, they won't make things difficult for you. Exactly. I see that your colleague Byran has a good attitude. Her husband is so capable, but I see that she is very low-key. If you didn't stir up trouble, She wouldn't even think of finding trouble with you. AI Faye, I think you're the one who doesn't like others, right? What's wrong? Are you feeling uneasy and envious now that I'm living better than you? Some people just can't stand others living a good life. This is human nature. But it doesn't make sense to cause others to suffer because of your own selfishness. Apologize. AI Faye, go and apologize to him. AI Faye looked at the angry crowd. No matter how wronged he felt, he had to bite the bullet and nod. I understand. Under AI Mengyun's lead, she arrived outside the VIP room and gently knocked on the door. The person who opened the door was the chief supervisor. AI Mengyun bowed and explained the reason. She asked tentatively, "We want to go in personally and apologize in person. Is that okay?" Apologize? The general manager asked. What's the point of apologizing? Chapter 46-32. AI Faye glanced at AI Mengyun and finally braced herself to take a step forward. She said to the general manager, "I'm Bai Yu's colleague. I'm Mr. Gu's wife's colleague. I have something to say to her. Can you help me pass on the message?" AI Mengyun was his direct subordinate, so he could still reject her. But AI Faye was not. She wasn't his subordinate, so he could only convey her request on her behalf. The general manager closed the door and turned around. He glanced at Bai Yu and walked to her side. He bent down and said softly, "Someone is looking for you outside. She said she's your colleague and her name is AI Faye. She said she has something to say to you." Bai Yu frowned when she heard that. She was originally choosing a house, but when she heard the general manager say that, she guessed that it was because of the punishment. He was here to plead for mercy. Bai Yu glanced at Gu Changze, who immediately understood. "Go ahead." Bai Yu stood up and walked to the door. When she opened the door, she saw AI Mengyun and AI Faye standing outside with different expressions. When AI Mengyun saw her walk out, she became even more uneasy. Her face was flushed, and her eyes were filled with guilt and embarrassment. "I'm sorry. Just now, I looked down on you." Bai Yu frowned when she heard that. She could not help but say, "I think there's no need to apologize. Once some damage is done, it's useless no matter how many apologies you say." AI Mengyun was even more embarrassed. I didn't have a good attitude. I'm very sorry. Your company's punishment system was not set by me. Your superior gave you such a punishment system not because you offended me, but because you lack professionalism in treating your customers. This has a negative impact on the company, so the punishment is like this. So it's useless for you to ask me to plead for mercy. I'm an outsider. I have no right to interfere with the company's reward and punishment system. Do you understand? AI Faye said anxiously. But isn't your husband friends with President Yoon? If he can plead for mercy on our behalf, won't it be useful? Bai Yu found this interesting and said doubtfully, "Why do you want others to bear the responsibility for your mistakes? My husband didn't do anything wrong. He's innocent. It's because you didn't treat your customers responsibly and didn't perform your duties. That's why the superior gave you such a punishment." Moreover, the punishment was clear. The employees who did not make any mistakes would not be punished. The ones who were punished were all those who were involved. I don't think there was anything wrong with such a punishment. Why should my husband plead for you? What Bai Hao had just said was reasonable and flawless. AI Mengyun's face was half red and half green, but she didn't know how to reply. AI Faye was angry. "Bai Yan, how can you be so impersonal? Just say a few words on our behalf and settle it. It's just a piece of cake for you. Don't you think it's troublesome? Or are you happy to see us so unlucky? So many people have lost their jobs because of you. Are you proud of that? Because of me." Chapter 46-33. AI Faye, please get your facts straight. Who is it that caused them to lose their jobs? It's you who brought your personal grudge into someone else's work. You should be the one apologizing, yet you're trying to morally kidnap me? Bai Shang's words were so eloquent that AI Faye had no reason to refute him. AI Mengyun, who was listening from the side, was extremely anxious. She was only concerned about her own interests now. AI Faye's fate had nothing to do with her. That was half of her assets. One had to know that after the Spring River Heavenly Seal was sold out, they would be transferred to other sales offices. Spring River Heavenly Seal could be said to be the best real estate and the best platform. If she missed this opportunity, she did not know if there would be a next time. AI Faye was furious, but she had to consider her aunt's interests, so she swallowed her anger. I know that it's my fault. I'm a snob. I envy you and I'm jealous of you. Why are you doing better than me? Why are you prettier than me? Why are you being pursued by so many male colleagues? Why are you even married to such a good husband? I'm jealous, so I'm targeting you. It's my fault, but please don't implicate others. When Bai Sheng heard this, his expression softened when he saw that she had finally told the truth. At least, she was willing to tell the truth. The most valuable thing about a person was not her willingness to apologize, but her willingness to face the ugliness in her heart. Admitting one's ugliness was rarer than pretending to be virtuous. I understand. Bai Sheng smiled helplessly. I'll plead with my husband and friends, but that's all I can do. That's because I still don't want to interfere with other companies' reward and punishment system. Do you understand? Bai Sheng also felt that the punishment was too severe. She knew that Yun Tianyu was standing up for her. Since AI Faye had sincerely apologized, she was willing to forgive her. One should be lenient wherever possible. There was no need to make too many enemies for herself. Bai Sheng did not like to be targeted. Hence, when she returned to the office, Gu Chengze looked up at her and saw her troubled expression. He instantly guessed something. Did they ask you to plead for mercy? Yes. She felt a little guilty. I'm willing to forgive them. However, I don't know if I can plead for them. Why not? Yun Tianyu disagreed. Your reputation is greater than your husband's. Gu Chengze glanced at him coldly and turned to ask Bai Sheng. Are you willing to forgive them? I'm willing. Why? Gu Chengze was a little surprised. They humiliated you just now. Bai Sheng was a little embarrassed. Most importantly, he was afraid that he would be put in a difficult position. I'm not good at holding grudges. Hearing this, Gu Chengze smiled helplessly. She was still the same. So gentle. When Bai Sheng was young, no matter who bullied her, as long as they apologized seriously, she was willing to forgive them. At that time, he felt that she was too saintly. Why was she so magnanimous? Some people are not worthy of forgiveness. He even asked her, if you let him go this time, what if he bullies you again? At that time, she revealed a confident expression. I'm not afraid. Only then did he understand that forgiving someone was a sign of fearlessness. He liked Bai Sheng like this. Gu Chengze looked at Yun Tianyu. Can the punishment be waived? Chapter 46-34. When Bai Sheng heard this, he lowered his eyes helplessly. She had tried her best. If Yun Tianyu was unwilling, she would not force him. But Yun Tianyu suddenly turned his head and glanced at the dejected Bai Sheng. He said slowly, if my employees sincerely seek the customer's forgiveness and consider the customer's opinion, the company is willing to reduce the punishment. Reduce? Bai Sheng could not help but be curious. How? If they do something wrong, they must be punished. Just like outstanding performance, they must be rewarded. Without rules, nothing can be accomplished. As Yun Tianyu spoke, the pen in his hand gently turned in an arc. If you are willing to forgive them, then I can only consider deducting a month's worth of performance and bonus. Although this was not a small loss, it was much more humane than the previous punishment. Bai Sheng was touched when he heard this. Thank you. I should thank you on behalf of my employees. Yun Tianyu said seriously. Bai Sheng, you are very kind for being willing to forgive their rudeness and neglect. In this day and age, there were not many such kind girls. What? Is that true? In the hall, a group of people surrounded the sales director with tears of gratitude. The sales director glanced at them unhappily. Can I lie about military intelligence? Most importantly, the customer is magnanimous and forgave you. The company considered the customer's opinion and reduced the punishment. However, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't let this happen again. If you meet such a good-tempered customer, you won't be able to meet another one. The company has its rules and regulations. This time, you have obtained the customer's forgiveness, and the customer has also pleaded for mercy on your behalf. If there is a next time, you can pack up and leave. Wow! The group of people cheered. Although a month's bonus and performance was still deducted, this was different. Only after experiencing despair could they cherish it. After the group of people cheered, they started to feel deeply regretful. They had humiliated Bai Shang previously, but she had repaid evil with kindness. It was impossible to say that they were not ashamed at all. They blamed themselves more and more. Many of them wanted to apologize to Bai Shang personally. Ai Fei glanced at Ai Mingyun and her eyes suddenly reddened. She really did not expect Bai Shang to be willing to forgive them and plead for them. When Ai Fei had apologized to Bai Shang earlier, she hadn't been very sincere. But now that Bai Shang had helped them, the guilt she felt towards Bai Shang came from the bottom of her heart. Why was she so bad? She was so bad, but Bai Shang still. In the VIP room, Bai Shang and Gu Chengze had already signed the contract. They picked a house they liked. It was more than 130 yuan with 3 rooms, 2 halls and 2 bathrooms. Bai Shang didn't ask about the total price, but there were many zeros on the contract. The original price was at least tens of millions. She felt a little guilty. Tugging at Gu Chengze, she said in disbelief. "This is your friend paying for the difference in price?" Gu Chengze secretly told her. "He's so rich, why do you feel bad? Besides, did I tell you that? I made a bet with him that if I got married first, he would sell me a house at a 50% discount." "Does he have a girlfriend? Or fiancé?" Gu Chengze was startled and his expression darkened. Chapter 46-35. Bai Shang was a little surprised. It was not because Gu Chengze said that Yun Tianyu had a woman he loved. It was just that his expression did not seem very happy, and his tone was a little heavy. What happened? Just as he asked, Yun Tianyu pushed the door open and walked in. Gu Chengze shushed him. Bai Shang immediately sat down obediently and did not ask any more questions. "Have you signed the contract?" "Yes, it's signed. Director Yun has spent a lot of money." Yun Tianyu glanced at him coldly and snorted. "This is not allowed to happen again." "That's for sure." Gu Chengze hugged Bai Shang's shoulders and said with a smile, "Anyway, I don't intend to get married a second time." His satisfied expression made it seem as if he had the whole world with Bai Shang. Gu Chengze casually handed the contract to Yun Tianyu. The director had been waiting for a long time at the side. Yun Tianyu handed the contract to him and asked, "What's the earliest we can get the property certificate?" "It'll take 2 working days even if we go through the VIP channel." The director immediately said, "Director Yun, don't worry. Once the property certificate is ready, I'll personally send it to them." Gu Chengze nodded in satisfaction. As expected of Spring River Heavenly Seal, the service is top-notch and 5-star reviews. Yun Tianyu was about to ask him to get lost when he asked Gu Chengze very seriously, "I saw an advertisement at the entrance. The first customer to complete the transaction every day will get a house full of appliances. Is that true?" Yun Tianyu gave a fake smile. "Gu Chengze, I think you can be more shameless. Then, will the house full of green plants be given as well?" Bai Shang. She felt that they might be chased out in the next second. "Hey!" She did not know whether to laugh or cry as she tugged at Gu Chengze's sleeve and asked worriedly, "Will we be chased out?" "You won't." Yun Tianyu comforted her gently, but in the next second, his tone turned cold. "But he will." "Eh? Don't. I'm not greedy anymore. Don't chase me out. It's so hot outside." "We've bought the house. Is there anything else?" "No." "Then get lost." Yun Tianyu said coldly, "I don't want to see you again for a week." When Gu Chengze and Bai Shang left the sales office, a row of sales staff in uniform stood at the door. They had different expressions, but their faces were filled with guilt. Ai Mingyun and Ai Mingyun. Ai. Bai Shang's eyes widened in surprise. Then he looked at the row of people standing behind her. There were so many people. Why were they standing at the door? Oh. Ai Fei's eyes and face suddenly turned red. Chapter 46-36. Bai Shang was a little surprised. "So your apology wasn't serious?" I didn't hear it. I thought you guys were serious about apologizing." As Bai Shang spoke, she smiled and frowned helplessly. "I'm actually not a person who's good at holding grudges. Because life is already so difficult. If you have to remember and fuss over anything that doesn't go your way, don't you feel tired?" Ai Fei looked at her in a daze. "I'm actually not that generous, but I can't be bothered to fight with others. AI Faye, I accept your apology. I hope that when we meet again at the company we can be friends. As Bai Shang spoke, she suddenly thought of something. She looked at AI Faye and then at Gu Chengza beside her. She said word by word, "Actually, you don't have to be envious of me. Many times, meeting anyone is sometimes a coincidence, and sometimes it's inevitable. I admit that I'm very lucky to have met my husband, but I don't think it's worth being jealous of. If you can't meet the person you think is outstanding, then make yourself an outstanding person." AI Faye nodded silently. Bai Shang said to Gu Chengza, "Shall we go back?" "Okay." Gu Chengza put his arm around Bai Shang's shoulder, and the two of them walked to the parking lot. They got into the car and left under the gaze of a group of people. AI Mengyun looked at the departing phaeton and heaved a sigh of relief. Today's incident was a false alarm. On Monday, when Bai Shang arrived at work, there was a box of skim milk on the table. She picked it up and there was a post-it note on it. "Thank you." Smiley face. Bai Shang immediately understood who had sent this box of milk. She glanced at AI Faye. AI Faye sensed her gaze and lowered her head in embarrassment. At noon, Bai Shang took the initiative to walk to AI Faye's seat and asked, "Do you mind if I sit here?" "No, I don't mind." "If you don't mind." "What's there to mind? It's indeed a little boring to eat alone." Bai Shang sat down opposite her. AI Faye was even more embarrassed. After all, they had some grudges from before. However, Bai Shang was generous and had no intention of bearing a grudge. AI Faye gradually relaxed. "Bai Shang, your husband really dotes on you. Also, he's so handsome. Did you guys really meet on a blind date?" Bai Shang nodded. She was also a little absent-minded. "My marriage with him can be considered a coincidence, right?" "What kind of accident?" AI Faye wasn't in a hurry to find out about her relationship with Gu Chengza. Instead, she was more curious. "You're still so young and have just graduated. Why are you already going on blind dates?" "My aunt forced me to do it." Bai Shang briefly explained the reason why Yi Yuqin forced her to go on blind dates after she graduated. "Oh my god. Isn't your aunt's family a little too extreme?" AI Faye began to complain on her behalf. "What's the difference between you and a blood-sucking bug?" So, out of a sense of revenge, when he proposed marriage, although I was stunned for a moment, I still agreed. Chapter 46-37. AI Faye smiled. "Bai Shang, no wonder all the male colleagues in the office like you. You look so good when you smile. Moreover, you're very kind. These days there aren't many girls as innocent as you. However, it's easy to be taken advantage of." As she spoke, she was afraid that Bai Ran would misunderstand, so she quickly explained, "I didn't mean to curry favor with you. In the past, I always thought that you were very kind and not scheming, but I also felt that you were just pretending to confuse men. Actually, you're a white lotus. It wasn't until I got to know you, especially through this incident, that I realized that you're actually quite kind." Bai Ran smiled. "Isn't being kind good? If a person is vicious, wouldn't it be tiring to live?" AI Faye pursed her lips. "Actually, I should be considered a vicious girl, right? Look, I'm criticizing you on purpose and thinking of you as such a bad person. I actually believe in Sun Zi's words. Human nature is evil. Mencius said that human nature is good, but I feel that human nature is evil. However, through education and nurturing, kindness will eventually replace that evil. There are no absolutely kind people, nor are there absolutely evil people." AI Faye was a little surprised. "Do you have evil thoughts sometimes?" "Yes," Bai Ran said truthfully. "Sometimes, especially when I'm at my most desperate, I really hope that my aunt will suddenly die one day." She raised her head and looked at AI Faye. She smiled helplessly. "Are you surprised? I'm not as kind as you think. However, that thought was filtered out of my mind in an instant. But I'll never forget that I actually had such an evil thought." Bai Ran continued. "So I feel that there's no mistake that can't be forgiven. As long as it's not a mistake of principle, as long as you don't offend others, as long as you're forgiven, don't take it to heart." After saying so much, Bai Ran actually hoped that AI Faye would not take that matter to heart anymore. "AI Faye, haven't you already apologized to me? Since you've already apologized, don't take it to heart anymore. You don't owe me anymore." AI Faye was really touched when she heard this. Bai Hao's words sounded long-winded, but he was actually hoping that she would forget those things. Thank you, Bai Yan. AI Fei said sincerely. Can we be friends? Forget all the unpleasantness from before and make new friends. After a pause, she added, if you don't mind. I don't mind. Bai Ran calmly extended his hand to her and smiled. Hello, I'm Bai Ran. Didn't you say you wanted to make friends again? Bai Kun smiled and reminded her. Then let's start by introducing ourselves. Only then did AI Fei react. She quickly stretched out her hand and held it tightly together. Hello, I'm AI Fei. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. This was probably the meaning of the phrase, a smile erases all enmity. The whole company was in an uproar when Bai Chong and AI Fei became good friends. Last week, AI Fei had been targeting Bai Hao. How come they had become friends now? Chapter 46-38. After work, Gu Chengza came to pick Bai Ran up as usual. Bai Ran was gradually getting used to having him pick her up. At first, she was not used to having someone send her to the company and pick her up from work. But gradually, seeing him at the entrance of the company became such a heartwarming thing. Bai Ran said goodbye to AI Fei and walked towards Gu Chengza. Suddenly, her phone rang. She took out her phone in confusion and saw that it was Yi Yuqin calling. She was curious. She had disappeared for so long. Back then, it was Yi Yuqin who asked her to get out of the Yi family. She had thought that she and Yi Yuqin would be strangers. Why was she suddenly calling? Bai Ran hesitated for a moment but still picked up the call and walked towards the car. Seeing that she picked up the call, Gu Chengza walked to the front passenger seat and opened the door for her. Bai Ran smiled and nodded. However, Yi Yuqin's extremely cold voice came from the other end of the phone. Bai Ran, where are you? Bai Ran sighed and got into the car. She asked calmly, Auntie, why are you looking for me? Bang! A loud sound was heard. The car door closed. Yi Yuqin's questioning voice came from the other end. You're in the car? What's wrong? I heard the car door close. Yi Yuqin finally could not hold it in anymore. Bai Ran, what do you want? Huh. You're a girl and you haven't been home for so many days. Are you trying to rebel? Home. When Bai Yu heard this, he laughed coldly. Is that my home? It never was. Ha. You're all grown up now, aren't you? Do you think that you have a man protecting you so you don't care about me as your auntie? Bai Ran, why don't you think about it carefully? Without me, would you have been able to study to university? Without me, would you have been able to grow up healthily? Bai Ran was speechless. Yi Yuqin's words clearly implied that she was trying to force her to repay her kindness. Bai Ran knew that Yi Yuqin had raised her up because she was indebted to her. However, she did not agree with the second half of the sentence. Auntie, I'm really glad that I grew up healthily. Otherwise, if I fell sick halfway through, you would definitely have thrown me into the wilderness and left me to fend for myself. Although her body wasn't particularly healthy since she was young, she rarely went to the hospital. Most of the time it was just a minor illness and pain. They could just endure it at home. He did not suffer from any serious illness, so there was no need to worry about him. But Bai Kun's feelings towards Yi Yuqin were very complicated. She was very grateful to Yi Yuqin for raising her. But at the same time, she was very clear that Yi Yuqin had her own selfish reasons for raising her. And this selfishness she had already made it very clear. She frequently urged her to go on blind dates because she wanted to use her to get a house for her son so that she could prepare for the wedding. Bai Kun's heart had already turned cold. If it was in the past, she would still be grateful to Yi Yuqin. But now, because of this matter, she was not grateful at all. Aunt, why did you call me? Why don't you just tell me the reason? We don't have to go around in circles like this. On the other end, Yi Yuqin's voice was equally impolite. Chapter 46-39. Bai Ran was so angry that she laughed. Am I not the one who has the final say in marriage? You don't have to decide who I want to marry, do you? You're not the one getting married, I'm the one getting married. You don't have to say anything. Okay, it's fine if you don't want a divorce. Yi Yuqin said angrily. If you don't want a divorce, give me 5 million as a wedding gift. Are you crazy? Bai Ran was so angry that she was dumbfounded. Her voice rose and her whole body started to tremble. Auntie, don't be so greedy. 5 million. Who would give 5 million to their auntie when they get married? Why not? Yi Yuqin mocked. If the man who marries you doesn't even have the ability to do that, I can only say that you're blind. Bai Ran was so angry that she was confused. It was said that many people were selling their daughters by marrying them off. However, these mothers were still biological mothers. This Yi Yuqin was nothing. She was just her auntie who raised her. She admitted that she was grateful. Why did she have to force her to repay her kindness? The most hateful thing was 5 million. This was extortion. No. Bai Ran rejected coldly. Auntie, I will never agree to it. I'm not asking you for it. Yi Yuqin said arrogantly. Let your husband answer the phone. I'll talk to him. Why should I? Bai Ran's voice also rose. Gu Chengzi put on his seatbelt. Seeing Bai Ran's pale face, he raised his eyebrows and asked with concern. Is it your auntie calling? Yeah. Bai Ran covered her phone and felt guilty. My auntie is pestering me again. Oh? Is it about the wedding gift? How did you know? Her voice was very loud. I heard it. Gu Chengzi opened his hands. Give me the phone. I'll talk to her. But? Give it to me. Be good. Bai Ran sighed and finally handed the phone to him with trembling hands. Gu Chengzi took the phone and Yi Yuqin's impatient voice came from the other end. Hello? Hello? Bai Ran. Where the hell are you? Say something. She had been covering her phone the whole time, so Yi Yuqin lost her patience. Gu Chengzi said calmly. Hello, auntie. My name is Gu Chengzi. We've met before. Do you still remember? His choice of words was very elegant, and it was obvious who was better. Little Gu. Hearing his voice, Yi Yuqin's attitude softened. I've thought about your proposal for a long time. It's not that I can't agree to it. After all, you've already gotten your marriage certificate. Even if I don't agree, it's already settled. But this marriage can't be in vain, right? I've done my best to raise White Lion and put in so much effort. I can't just let it go like that, can I? As the saying goes, a married daughter is like spilled water. Now that they were getting married in the capital, which husband's family didn't give a few million as a monetary gift. What about you? What do you think about this matter? Hearing this, Gu Chengzi smiled. Auntie, you want to ask me for a monetary gift. What do you mean by asking you for it? Yi Yuqin didn't like what she heard. She said coldly, what do you mean by asking you for it? When it comes to monetary gifts, you should be the one to give it. Yi Yuqin was clearly asking for it, but she didn't want to sound bad. Gu Chengzi wasn't surprised by her attitude. Chapter 4640. Yi Yuqin smiled and said, it's at least 5 million. Let me tell you, our Balian is very popular. There are many big bosses who want to marry her. They all said that as long as they can marry her, 5 million is not a problem. Balian lost her parents when she was young. She's very pitiful. If it weren't for me, who worked so hard to raise her, she might have been sent to a welfare center, let alone university. Haha. I have a lot to do with her being where she is today. Yi Yuqin kept bragging about her efforts. Balian listened from the side and covered her face. She felt extremely annoyed. She looked at Gu Chengzi, unable to bear it. He had just bought a house. Although it was at a 50% discount, it must have emptied all his savings. Moreover, even if there was 5 million, she would not really let him give it to her. Gu Chengzi looked at Balian. On the other end of the line, Yi Yuqin's voice was still chattering. Little Gu, right? Since you've already married Balian, I can't say anything. But don't think that you can ignore the 5 million just because you've gotten the marriage certificate. 5 million? Haha. I think you can't afford that much money. Yi Yuqin looked down on Gu Chengzi. Although this man was quite handsome, at the end of the day without money, he would not take a liking to her. If the man's family doesn't give some cash as a wedding gift, how can they get married? I'm considered half a mother-in-law to Balian. If you can't afford it, be sensible and divorce Balian. If you don't have money, don't hold her back. She has a better choice. Gu Chengzi heard this and laughed softly. Oh, Balian has a better choice than me? Why didn't I know? These words were too domineering. Even though Gu Chengzi's tone was not very arrogant and was calm, his words were full of cynicism and arrogance, which was vividly displayed. On the side, Balian didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she heard this. Even though his words were very arrogant, especially arrogant, They actually touched the bottom of her heart. Why didn't she realize before that the gentle and refined Gu Chengze had such a domineering side to him? Bai Yu unconsciously looked at her man with admiration. Gu Chengze held the phone. On the other end, Yi Yuqin was stunned by his words. After a long pause, she sneered. What? I said there's no better choice than me. I am the best choice for Bai Yin. So, from now on I will be responsible for her marriage. You don't have to worry about it. So, you don't want to give me the monetary gift? I didn't say no. Gu Chengze asked again. Seeing how you raised Balian, I will give you a monetary gift. However, I don't quite understand the amount of 5 million. What's there to not understand? Reason. Gu Chengze raised his eyebrows. What do you plan to do with this 5 million? Just tell me if you can afford it. Gu Chengze smiled. If you can give me a reasonable explanation, I can afford 5 million. Bai Hao was startled. Did he just promise Yi Yuqin that? Gu Chengze. Shoo. Chapter 46-41. Okay, I'll give you a reasonable explanation. Yi Yuqin sat down and went over the accounts with Gu Chengze. When we were young, Bai Ran needed money to eat, right? She also needed money to wear it, right? She needed money to use it, and so did her school fees, right? I had to pay for 2 children's school fees, and that was a huge expense. Yeah. Bai Ran was disgusted when she heard that. Oh my God. Did she have to calculate money for that too? Ever since she was young, she and her cousin ate dumplings and wore what Yi Yuqin left behind. Speaking of wearing, the school uniforms when she was young cost money. They weren't expensive, only a few dozen yuan for a set, and 100 yuan for a full set of winter and summer clothes. Yi Yuqin didn't pay, so she was the only one in the whole school who didn't have a school uniform. That wasn't all. What kind of clothes were Yi Yuqin's leftover clothes? They were gaudy, old-fashioned, and too big. However, Yi Yuqin didn't have much money at that time, so she didn't have any extra money to spend on clothes. She could understand that, and she never complained. However, now that she was using this to calculate money, she didn't understand why her aunt-style clothes were worth money. Needless to say, they were used. Sometimes, after school, Bai Ran would deliberately stay behind to clean up. It wasn't because she was diligent, but because she would sweep around the classroom and secretly take the pencils and erasers that some students had left in the recycling bin. They were still usable and old, because she didn't have any. Some students were lazy, and when their pencils were bald, they wouldn't be happy to use them again. Bai Ran would take them, cut them with a knife, and use them for herself. When she was young, she had to practice writing with a fountain pen, but the fountain pens at that time were very expensive. When she went home and asked Yi Yuqin for money to buy one, Yi Yuqin would use all kinds of excuses to say that she didn't have money. The only fountain pen she used in high school was given to her by her homeroom teacher. That was because she saw Bai Ran using a pencil in her writing class. She was too embarrassed to say that because of her shyness. The other children in the class all used fountain pens, but she was the only one who used a shabby pencil. Therefore, she gave her an extra fountain pen. This fountain pen was very durable, and it was not easy to get, so Bai Ran had always treasured it. This fountain pen accompanied her to university. Later, when the tip of the pen broke, she kept it in her notebook. Let's talk about eating later. Bai Ran had never participated in any of the class activities, such as the spring and autumn excursions, summer camps, or winter camps. This was especially true for the summer and winter camps. At that time, the quota depended on results. Bai Ran's results were the best, but she didn't have a chance because she had to pay for it. She couldn't afford it. He had never been to the spring and autumn excursions. She could only stay at home, do her homework, and imagine her classmates participating in the spring and autumn excursions. She should be very happy, right? In fact, she did not feel inferior or sad to receive such treatment because the Yi family's conditions were not particularly good. She was already very grateful that he was willing to take her in and support her. But it was too much for Yi Yuqin to use this to ask Gu Chengze for money. Bai Ran was furious, but Yi Yuqin continued. When I was young, Bai Ran's parents had an accident, and I followed them. That was also money, right? And Bai Ran was admitted to a university. In order to raise her tuition fees, I almost sacrificed my son's chance to study. Chapter 46-42. Just think about it. With Yi Yuqin's desire for her son to succeed, If her disappointing son had the chance to go to university, would she be willing to let him go? When she was admitted to university, he was in the middle school exams. In the end, he did not even get into a decent high school. When she first received the graduation notice, Yi Yuqin thought it was for her son. When she realized it was for her, her face fell. The first thing she said was to stop studying and go out to work. She had worked so hard to prepare for the college entrance exams. How could she give up just like that? Bai Ran begged, but Yi Yuqin refused to take out the money. She said she would borrow it, but Yi Yuqin did not waver. She worked for the entire summer break. In the end, with the recommendation of her high school teacher, she successfully got a student loan. However, she still needed a little more. In the end, she knelt in front of Yi Yuqin's room for an entire night before she finally agreed. She even borrowed it. In the end, Bai Ran studied and worked part-time while paying off Yi Yuqin and the student loan. Actually, she could pay off the student loan after she started working. However, Bai Ran did not like owing people since she was young, especially when it came to the country. When she successfully got the student loan, she was really grateful. At that time, she even paid Yi Yuqin back with interest. In the end, in her mouth, it turned out that all this money was provided by her resources. What a joke! Why did she always say things like this? Bai Dan was furious beyond belief. How could Gu Chengze not tell that these were all excuses Yi Yuqin used to get the monetary gift? Why? Don't tell me you think that our Bai Ran is not worth 5 million. Yi Yuqin deliberately provoked him. Gu Chengze raised his eyebrows. Why is Bai Ran's value measured in 5 million? It was simply insulting to measure her with money. Yi Yuqin said. Then give me 5 million as a monetary gift. Otherwise, you won't have peace even if you marry her. With that, she hung up harshly. Gu Chengze held his phone and felt that this was interesting. As the eldest son of the Gu family, this was the first time in his life that he was threatened by a small town. From her tone, it seemed that if he insisted on not giving her the 5 million, she had other means. Gu Chengze wanted to see for himself. Ever since he was young, he had been by Gu Jinglian's side and had seen many dark side things, but he had digested them well. After hanging up the phone, Bai Ran took the phone and said angrily, "Actually, you don't have to care about her. She has never been reasonable. I just want to hear what kind of high-sounding reason she will come up with." Bai Ran smiled. "This aunt of mine is very difficult to deal with. I've guessed it. She must have found me a next home." Next. Gu Chengze's interest was piqued. What next house? After graduation, she went around setting me up on blind dates. She specifically picked those weird-looking, middle-aged, greasy men for me. However, they were all very rich. My aunt's request is very simple. No matter what her identity is, as long as she gets married, she will be given a house. Why did you give her a house? Because her son is disappointing. If he doesn't have a house, which girl would fancy him? Gu Chengze had truly witnessed what it meant to be shameless. Chapter 46-43. Gu Chengze was a little angry. Ever since they were young, Gu Jinglian and Chu Ho had bad tempers. Especially Gu Jinglian, who would give him a hard time. Under the violent education of this pair of clown parents, his temper could not be any softer and gentler. For as long as he could remember, it seemed that he rarely got angry, and he rarely got angry over someone. Because of Yi Yuqin, Gu Chengze was very angry. He had never seen such a shameless woman. She actually used a dignified name to wantonly exploit her niece. She did not even hesitate to use Bai Ran's marriage to scheme against her, just for her son's wedding house. The last time he saw Bai Ran at the cafe, she was on a blind date with a man. But he was a little surprised. Why did she need a blind date at such a young age? Now he knew. It turned out that she had been used by Yi Yuqin. In fact, although Gu Chengze's current income was based on an annual salary, he had been self-reliant ever since he was in university. Relying on his own abilities, he had accumulated quite a bit of savings. Taking out 5 million yuan was not a big deal. In fact, as long as Yi Yuqin was sincere and considerate of Bai Ran, even if she did not treat her as her own daughter, at least she did not just scheme and disregard Bai Ran. Then, he would definitely treat Yi Yuqin well on behalf of Bai Ran. However, Yi Yuqin's insatiable greed, especially her ugly table manners, made Gu Chengze feel disgusted from the bottom of his heart. However, Bai Ran was not very worried. After all, from what she knew, this husband of hers was just a salaried worker with some family background. 1 or 2 million yuan might be fine, but 5 million yuan was definitely not enough. She just felt sorry for him because he had to deal with such a difficult relative because of her. Bai Ran had never understood Gu Cheng's real background. It was not that she did not care. It was that she did not care. Regardless of whether the man was rich or poor, since they were married, no matter what, they were husband and wife. When she married him, she even thought that even if this man was burdened with debt, she would bite the bullet and continue to be with him. You don't have to take my aunt's words to heart, Bai Ran said calmly. No matter what she says, just ignore it forever. Gu Chengze raised his eyebrows. Has she always been so harsh to you? Isn't this how it should be? Bai Yan smiled bitterly. She's not my biological mother. As the saying goes, blood is thicker than water. After all, we're not blood related. If it weren't for my uncle, she and I wouldn't be related at all. Back then, she adopted me. To put it bluntly, you probably don't know the traditions of my hometown. Where we come from, the older and younger sisters usually don't have much status. As an elder sister, I have a nickname called Younger Brother Demon Helper. Voldemort. That's not it. It means that the elder sister has to take over the baton from the mother and work hard for the younger brother. Chapter 46-44. The more he listened, the angrier he got. He dared not imagine if he had appeared a little later. Would she be married to someone else now? Given her weak appearance, would she be able to resist Yi Yuqin to the end? Or perhaps she had married a man she did not love because of her resistance. He was a little angry. He was very concerned about this matter. Actually, he knew that his wife's marriage to him was probably a little rebellious. At least, half of it was to resist Yi Yuqin's tyranny. What about the other half? Was there a reason for it? Did she still remember him? She probably did not remember him. He did not know if she still remembered the boy who chased after her car when she left when they were young. What are you thinking about? Bai Yin interrupted his meditation. Seeing that his expression was not good, she thought that it was because of Yi Yuqin's matter. She immediately comforted him. Don't be angry. You don't have to lower yourself to my aunt's level. Okay. He nodded. Let's go back. Okay. He started the car and drove back home. They had yet to get the property deed, so the new house had not been handed over yet. However, the two planned to add some soft decorations on top of the house's hardcover. The style of the house mainly depended on the soft decorations. She liked Northern European and Chinese styles, while Gu Chengze, who had lived in the Gu residence since he was young, was sick of the Chinese style, so he leaned toward American and Northern European styles. The two of them had the same interests. Since they both liked Northern Europe, then they would design in the direction of Northern Europe soft accessories. Bai Hao naturally didn't need to worry about finding a design company. Gu Chengze would arrange it well. What? In the office, Gu Linqi leaned toward Yun Tongyu with great interest. He was extremely surprised. Did you say that he's married? Yes, a secret marriage. Yun Tianyu leaned on the sofa with a lazy look. Do you still remember the bet I made with him when I was bored? Humph. He must have done it on purpose. Gu Linqi, who was sitting in front of him, was dressed in a well-ironed suit. After more than a decade, he had grown from a handsome boy to a handsome man. His tall height, well-proportioned body, and the suit made him look even more handsome. He leaned forward with interest and couldn't help but ask, that day, did he take that girl to buy a house? Yes. Yun Tianyu was exasperated. I didn't expect him to be the first to get married among us. I thought that you would be the first one to get married. In the end, you don't even have a girlfriend. Instead, the youngest one got married in a flash. First, it's a flash marriage, and now it's a secret marriage. What kind of tricks is this kid playing? The Gu family doesn't know about this at all? Yun Tianyu was surprised at this. He originally thought that Gu Jinglian and Chu Ho would have seen Bai Ran. Even I haven't seen that girl before. I don't know what that kid is up to. He's so mysterious. Yun Tianyu furrowed his brows. Are you really brothers? Yes. If Shaoiqin gets married in a flash, even if Daddy and Mommy don't know, I'll definitely find out. He. Gu Linqi coldly said. That kid and I grew up together. Our brotherhood isn't as deep as yours. He silently cursed in his heart. This brat marriage is such a big thing, and he didn't even discuss it with me in advance. Chapter 46-45. He's closest to your Auntie Chu Ho, but I've never heard him mention this to her. Gu Linqi shook his head. I don't know if he did. Why don't you go back and ask around? Who knows, he might have told everyone except you. Gu Linqi's lips twitched as his eyelids twitched. Really? Did this brat really tell everyone except for him? That was impossible. Still, if that was not possible, why did Yun Tianyu know about it but not him? With such doubts in his heart, he returned home after work and happened to bump into Chu Ho embroidering. She had recently become obsessed with embroidery. While others were still obsessed with diamond stickers, Chu Ho had already caught up with the trend and was obsessed with embroidery. During this period, there was a sudden rise in the embroidery trend. However, embroidery was not something that anyone could embroider. Gu Jinglian and Gu Linqi thought that Chu Ho was just doing it on a whim. It was too difficult for her, who was used to holding a gun, to handle something as thin as an embroidery needle. But to everyone's surprise, not only was it not a momentary interest, but it was also a very good game. Gu Linqi stood at the door and watched her for a while. Chu Ho was so engrossed in embroidery that she did not realize that he had returned. He stared at her for a long time. Perhaps it was because they had been together for a long time, but after so many years, Chu Ho did not show any signs of aging. She and Gu Jinglian seemed to have used some kind of immortality method. Other than their facial features becoming more mature, and their smile showing some wrinkles, there were no other changes. Chu Ho did not usually do any expensive skincare. Other than a few creams, she did not learn from the other rich ladies to plant golden thread or inject sheep placenta into her body. Instead, she exercised frequently. Chu Ho had been training since she was young. If she did not exercise during her free time, Chu Ho would feel especially lethargic. After so many years, Gu Jinglian did not change much other than his character becoming more mature. Rather than saying that he was steady, it would be better to say that he had already stepped into the life of an old man. In the morning, she held Chu Ho's hand and went for a walk. When she was running, he would carry the birdcage in the park and enjoy the morning breeze. Gu Jinglian was obsessed with raising parrots. Raising a parrot was one thing, but other people were walking a dog, but he insisted on walking a bird. Therefore, Gu Linqi said that Gu Jinglian was already an old man. Brother, why are you back so early today? Gu Xinghan's voice sounded. Upon hearing this, Chu He immediately raised her head and turned to look at the man. In the afternoon, the man was taking an afternoon nap on the recliner. When he saw that Gu Linqi had returned, he yawned lazily and sat up. Gu Xinghan had just turned 16 and was in the prime of his life. On his young but slightly immature handsome face, there was an innate rebellious and perverse look. Gu Xinghan was very rebellious, like an insufferably arrogant little devil. He seemed to have inexhaustible energy. Now he had become Gu Jinglian's biggest headache. Chapter 46-46. When they were young, Gu Xinghan and Gu Linga looked quite alike. As they grew older, the difference in their looks began to be like heaven and earth. Gu Linga looked especially like Gu Jinglian. She had a bright appearance, especially her peach blossom eyes. She had inherited Gu Jinglian's exquisite eye shape, but she had a natural charm that girls should have. When she was young, people often said that if Linga grew up to be like Gu Jinglian, the people proposing marriage would probably trample over the Gu family's doorstep. Gu Jinglian snorted and said lightly, if Linga grew up, those unscrupulous boys would not even have the chance to cross the Gu family's threshold. Since they were young, Gu Jinglian favored Gu Linga, while Gu Xinghan was closer to Chu Ho. Opposites attract. This rule was so applicable in the Gu family. Gu Jinglian's temper was quite bad, but he could do nothing about Gu Linga. At this moment, Gu Linga said that she wanted to fly a kite, so Gu Jinglian eagerly took his precious daughter to the park. Chu Ho was left at home to embroider, while Gu Xinghan took a nap and accompanied her. Linqi, why are you back so early today? She was a little surprised. Gu Linqi casually put his briefcase on the table and smiled. There's nothing to do at the company, so I came back early. Oh. Chu Ho nodded and took out her embroidery work as if it was a treasure. She leaned in front of him and said proudly, Look, How is my embroidery? I'm very good. You're too perfunctory. You didn't even look at it much. Gu Linqi was helpless. Mom, you know that I don't know anything about embroidery. As long as it's embroidered by you, I think it looks good. Chu Ho smiled and did not blame him. She took the embroidery back to the table and began to embroider seriously. Gu Xinghan yawned again. Mom, you've been embroidering with your head down. Isn't your neck sore? It's not sore. Be careful of cervical spondylosis. Chu Ho glared at him. Gu Xinghan felt guilty from the stare and whistled. Pretend I didn't say anything. I'm just concerned. Gu Linqi suddenly asked, Mom, has Chengzi been back recently? Him. Chu Ho looked up, narrowed his eyes and said, I almost forgot about him if you didn't mention him. Ha ha ha. If second brother heard this, he would probably cry in the toilet. Your second brother's heart isn't so delicate. He cries so easily. It's not like he was a child anymore. I thought that he would come back to visit you soon. Chu Ho was speechless. That brat has almost forgotten all about me and his father. Gu Xinghan could not help but complain again. Aren't you the same as Dad? You've also forgotten about him completely. Chu Ho's face turned slightly red. Don't you dare talk too much. Gu Xinghan quickly raised his hand and patted his face. Big mouth, mother. I'll slap myself. You don't have to do it. Chu Ho was satisfied. She turned her head and looked at Gu Linqi. Why are you asking about him? Nothing. I saw that he hasn't been home recently, so I'm just asking. Maybe he's busy with work. Chu Ho did not take it to heart. Gu Linqi touched his nose. Haven't you heard from him recently? Didn't he talk to you on the phone? Chapter 46-47. Gu Xinghan said coldly again. Didn't mother say that she had almost forgotten about second brother completely? Chu Ho glared at him again. Gu Xinghan, why are you so talkative? Hiya. I just pity second brother. He doesn't even have a sense of existence anymore. Before Gu Xinghan could finish speaking, he quickly dodged. As expected, Chu Ho picked up the phone beside her and threw it at him. As he dodged, he reached out his hand and accurately caught the phone that she had thrown at him. Mom, your temper is getting worse. Are you going through menopause soon? As soon as Gu Xinghan finished speaking, Chu Ho suddenly stood up and looked furious. Why? Are you itching for a beating? How many days have I not taught you a lesson? Have you become arrogant? Well, I'm going upstairs to read. Gu Xinghan finished speaking resentfully, then walked around her and went upstairs dejectedly. Gu Linqi looked at Chu Ho, who had run upstairs, and shook his head. His face was full of helplessness and affection as an elder brother. Xinghan is at the age where he is mischievous. Chu Ho was furious. You said I'm going through menopause, but he's still in his rebellious phase? The mention of menopause seemed to have hit Chu Ho's sore spot. Previously, Chu Ho's temper had been particularly irritable, and she had been suffering from insomnia. When Gu Jinglian took her to the hospital said that she was going through menopause and that these were normal reactions. Telling a woman that she was going through menopause was undoubtedly telling a man, you can't do it anymore. It was the same critical hit. Chu Ho almost kicked up a fuss in the doctor's office. She said a famous saying, menopause. I'm still so young. Imagine a woman in her 40s saying that she was still so young. In the entire office, the doctors huddled together and hugged each other as they trembled. They looked at the angry Chu Ho but did not dare to say anything. At that time, Gu Jinglian was afraid of angering her, so he didn't say anything at the scene. When he got home and Chu Ho wasn't around, he mentioned it to Gu Linqi and Gu Xinghan. They laughed so hard that they almost couldn't breathe. It must have been hard on him. He had such a strong desire to live. In order to avoid Chu Ho's violence, he had to hold back his laughter all the way home. During dinner, he even had to pretend to be calm. He imitated Chu Ho and said, I'm still so young. Ha 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 ha. She's already in her 40s. Does she still think she's a little girl? Of course, Chu Ho didn't know that Gu Jinglian was badmouthing her behind her back. Over the past 10 years, Chu Ho had always felt that time had passed abnormally fast. She couldn't even feel the passage of time. 10 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Sometimes it was inevitable that she would feel melancholic. Over 10 years had passed too quickly. In another decade or so, she and Gu Jinglian should be a little older. People were not afraid of aging. It was just that the older they got, the more things and people they missed. When they were young, they were high-spirited. When they were slightly older, they had more worries in their hearts. Chu-ho sat down in her seat. Gu Linshi walked over and patted her back gently. Mom, sometimes don't hold it in. Just hit him if you want to. That kid has a thick skin and can take your punches. I'm afraid that in the future when I can't hit him anymore, he'll hit me. Do you think my dad is a pushover? No matter how old he is, if he slaps that kid, he'll be plastered to the wall. Chu-ho was speechless. She asked, you were just talking about Chungza. Why are you suddenly talking about him? Well, the topic returned to that. Chapter 46-48. Seeing his hesitation, Chu-ho suddenly became nervous. What's wrong? Did something happen to him? If Gu Linqi's expression was like this at the mention of Gu Xinghan, then the lad must have gotten into trouble. However, if Gu Linqi's expression was like this at the mention of Gu Changza, then Chu-ho would be worried that something might have happened to him. Gu Linqi hurriedly explained, Mom, don't overthink it. Tell me quickly. Gu Linqi touched his nose. I don't know if he mentioned it to you, but judging from your reaction, I don't think so. Since you know, then tell me. He's married. Gu Linqi quickly reported the situation. Chu-ho did not react for a moment. Huh. However, after a while, her expression gradually changed. He's married? Yes. He even bought a house. Chu-ho was stunned for a long time. His brows furrowed, and he was slightly angry. Why didn't he tell me then? He didn't tell me either. Then how did you know? Well, Yuntian, you told me that he went to Spring River Royal Seal to buy a wedding house. Spring River Royal Seal was a property developed by Xingyu Financial Group. Chu-ho knew this. That lad is all grown up now. Why didn't he tell us that he's married? Chu-ho snorted. Is he afraid that I won't agree to it? I'm so open-minded. As long as it's what he likes, I don't mind even if I have to break my leg. I'm guessing that there's something he can't say. Chu-ho glanced at him. Really? When are we going to do an unannounced visit? An unannounced visit? Cough. Gu Linqi moved closer to her ear. I heard that the lady has moved to Chungza's apartment. I also checked her schedule. The day after tomorrow, when she's off and Chungza is at work, we can make a surprise visit. Just the two of us. Do you want Dad to go too? I don't know. Chu-ho was suspicious again. What identity are we going to use? I don't look like Chungza, so I'll say that I'm his friend. Then I'll also say that I'm his friend. Gu Linqi couldn't help but say, Mom, at your age, it's not appropriate to call him a friend, right? Chu-ho clenched his fists. You think I'm old too? No. Chu-ho suggested again, then I'll say that I'm his aunt. Gu Linqi finally nodded. Gu Linqi had plenty of ways to investigate Bai Ran's background. So, just as he found out, Gu Chungza went to work early that day while Bai Ran was resting at home. At noon, when she was about to go out to buy some groceries, she saw Gu Linqi and Chu-ho standing at the door. They had just arrived and were about to ring the doorbell. Bai Hao was stunned. The reason why he was surprised was because the woman in the mask looked a lot like Gu Chungza. Although he couldn't see his entire face, that pair of eyes was exactly the same. Bai Hao looked at Chu-ho and asked, You are? Oh, is this Chungza's house? Chu-ho asked even though he already knew the answer. When Bai Hao saw them, she guessed that these two people probably had something to do with Gu Changza. You are? I'm Chungza's aunt. I came once before, but I haven't been here in a long time. Especially when I saw such a beautiful lady opening the door. I was afraid that I might have mistaken her for someone else. Chapter 46-49. Bai Ran ushered them into the house. Chu-ho and Gu Linqi looked at each other. Through the mask, Chu-ho whispered to Gu Linqi, This girl is so careless. She probably thinks you look like Chungza. Chu-ho nodded. The two of them entered the house and Bai Ran invited them to the sofa. She seemed to be in a hurry. After all, it was her first time receiving elders from her family. She wrung her hands and asked tentatively, Chungza is still at work. Should I call him back? Oh, it's okay. Chu-ho quickly waved his hand. Gu Linqi said, It's okay. We're just here to sit. If he's not here, we'll wait for him to come back from work. Bai Ran was puzzled. Really? Since they were here to look for Gu Changza, the atmosphere would be awkward if she was alone when he was not around. Chu Ho quickly changed the topic. Do you have tea? Yes. Bai Ran immediately reacted and said apologetically, I'm sorry. I've been here for so long and I haven't poured you any tea. I'll go boil some water first. No rush. Gu Linqi watched her go into the study and looked at Chu Ho. Chu Ho nodded approvingly. Yes, she's quite pretty. It's just that she looks familiar. Yes. Her name is Bai Ran. This name sounds familiar too. It had been so long ago that Gu Linqi had almost forgotten that this name had once appeared in his life. When he was young, there seemed to be a girl who was good friends with Gu Changza. When he mentioned the name, Chu Ho instantly remembered. Could it be that Ranner? Unlike Gu Linqi, Chu Ho was an adult. Therefore, his memory was deeper than Gu Linqi's. Bai Ran. Ren? Chu Ho immediately thought of this name. When we were young, wasn't there a girl named Ranner who was good friends with Changza? Now that you mention it, I remember. Indeed, there was such a girl. Could it be that this Bai Ran was the Ranner that Gu Changza missed so much when he was young? If that was the case, then it wouldn't be hard to explain why Gu Changza got married so quickly. He was deeply in love with Shang'er. Even after so long, the photos of him and Shang'er when they were young were still in his drawer. Gu Linqi and Chu He exchanged glances with each other. Wait a minute. I'll ask her when she comes over. Okay. The two of them sat upright. When Bai Ran walked over with a cup of tea, Gu Linqi pretended to ask casually, You live with Changza. Are you married? Bai Hao was bewildered. He lifted his head awkwardly. She didn't know how to ask this question. She didn't know if she should tell them the truth. Most importantly, she did not know if Gu Changza had any intention of announcing their marriage to his family. They had a secret marriage. Gu Linqi saw that she was hesitating and immediately comforted her. It's okay. Just say it. I heard that Changza is married. It's just that he hasn't had the time to hold a wedding, right? Bai Hao nodded. Yes, we haven't had the time to hold a wedding. We are married. What's your name? Bai Ran. Bai Ran explained. Bai as in Bai and Chang as in Shanga. Chapter 4650. Oh, that's because I was adopted by my aunt when I was very young. Because I had to register for the household register, my aunt simply adopted me. Naturally, my surname was Jiang. When Chu Ho heard this, his heart ached. Why were you adopted by your aunt when you were young? Because when I was very young, my parents died in a car accident. I followed my grandmother back to the countryside, but they were not in good health. They died when they were young. I had no choice but to follow uncle and aunt. How did this happen? As Chu Ho spoke, her age and identity matched. She was Bai Sheng Gu Changza's childhood sweetheart. However, she did not seem to recognize her. Actually, she did not change much. But why did Bai Sheng not recognize her when she was standing right in front of her? Gu Linqi was not surprised. After all, it had been too long. It was normal for her not to remember. How young was Bai Sheng at that time? Some people had a deep memory and could remember things from when they were young, but some people could not remember. Therefore, Bai Sheng did not recognize their faces, but she did not treat them as strangers. Gu Linqi had changed a lot. Although Chu Ho had not changed much, Bai Sheng had always been with Gu Changza and him. It was normal for her not to recognize Chu Ho. Bai Sheng smiled and said, Actually, we got married in a hurry. To be more precise, we got married on the first day we met. Hiss? Chu Ho and Gu Linqi were shocked. They gasped in disbelief. You got married on the first day you met? That's unbelievable. Bai Sheng's face turned even redder. She lowered her head and said embarrassedly, Isn't it too sudden? Chu Ho restrained her surprised expression and immediately smiled. Isn't this a good thing? Yes, Changza has reached the age to get married. You can work hard to have children. Chu Ho could not hide her desire to be a mother-in-law and began to urge them to have children. Hearing this, Bai Sheng's face turned even redder. He hurriedly said, Isn't it too rushed to have a child? I haven't gotten to know him yet. We don't understand each other. We're already married. Wouldn't it be natural for us to have children? Gu Linqi glanced at her coldly. She cursed silently in her heart. Even if you're in a hurry to have a grandchild, you shouldn't be so eager for quick success. He should at least restrain himself a little. What if he scared her? Bai Sheng was a little embarrassed. The awkward thing was that they were being urged to have a child right after they got married. Moreover, this woman was Gu Cheng's aunt. If her mother-in-law urged her to have a child, she would have nothing to complain about. Even his aunt was urging him. It wasn't that she didn't like children, but she wasn't prepared. Uncle and aunt were in a mess now. She didn't know what to do. Her scalp went numb at the thought of her aunt's sky-high monetary gift. She didn't want to implicate Gu Chengza, but if Yi Yuqin really wanted to cause trouble, would Gu Chengza be disappointed and annoyed? Bai Sheng was now confused. She and Gu Chengza had gotten married on a whim. After being impulsive, a series of problems and effects caused by a flash marriage were troublesome. Bai Sheng sighed. Chapter 46:51. Chu Ho wanted to say something, but Gu Linqi nudged her arm and whispered, "Mom, can't you be a little more reserved? Don't push him so blatantly." Only after Gu Linqi's reminder did Chu He restrain herself and quickly chimed in. There's no rush. This matter really can't be rushed." Bai Ran blushed and lowered her head. She did not know what to say. There was a stalemate. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Seeing Bai Ran so shy, Chu Ho was a little embarrassed too. She smiled stiffly at Gu Linqi and reminded her, "Why don't we leave? You just got here and you want to leave?" Chu Ho did not say anything. She had nothing to say to this child. Firstly, she had pretended to be Gu Cheng's aunt, so she felt a little guilty. Moreover, she would meet Bai Ran sooner or later as Bai Ran's mother-in-law. If she was exposed, it would be very awkward. Chu Ho was worried about this. She recognized Bai Ran as Gu Cheng's childhood sweetheart. She had lost her parents at such a young age and was quite pitiful. She did not know how she had lived for the past 10 years. But now was not the time to talk about the past. The future was long. The most important thing now was that she had already figured out Bai Ran's identity, and that Gu Chengza had gotten married in a flash. She was not a woman of unknown origin, so Chu He was relieved. "We're just here to check out the house. Since Chengza is not home, we're going to leave too." Chu Ho stood up and pulled Gu Linqi's ear. Gu Linqi hissed in pain. He was already very old. He was a man in his 20s, but Chu Ho still pulled his ear all day long. Did he not care about his pride? "Mom, let's go." Bai Ran saw them stand up and hurriedly stood up as well. "You're leaving already? You've only been here for a while. I won't disturb you, haha." Bai Ran was a little embarrassed. "But I haven't treated you properly yet." There will be plenty of opportunities in the future." Chu Ho then turned to Gu Linqi. "Linqi, let's go." Bai Kun felt a little guilty. She thought that they had left in a hurry because she couldn't entertain them. However, she didn't know how to make them stay. She did not know how to get along with her relatives and friends. She was usually very quiet and was always alone in her room. Therefore, she was somewhat at a loss when facing two guests. However, she was too embarrassed to ask them to stay. She walked them to the elevator. Chu Ho repeatedly asked her to go back, but Bai Ran still refused. It was not until they entered the elevator and the door closed that she finally let out a sigh of relief. He was so nervous. Bai Ran returned to the house and hesitated for a moment before calling Gu Chengza. "Hello? What happened?" "Hubby, two people came to our house just now. One is your aunt and the other is your friend?" "Aunt?" Gu Chengza's eyes twitched. "Are they still there? When did he have an aunt? Even if they did, they weren't close. The direct and collateral branches of the Gu family formed their own network and didn't have close contact with each other. He didn't even remember what his aunt looked like." "Hubby, your aunt looks a lot like you." Chapter 46:52. Since Bai Sheng had already said so, Gu Chengza would have wasted all the time he had spent with Chu Ho if he still did not react. "However, I think your aunt is really young. She doesn't look like she's older than you. If she's your cousin, I'll believe her." After hanging up the phone, Gu Chengza hesitated for a long time. Finally, he chose to call Chu Ho. The moment the call connected, Gu Chengza said coldly, "Mom, you came to my house just now? Kid, you still know to call me?" Chu Ho said angrily, "When did you get married? You didn't even tell me." Mom found out about this from Linshi. Where did he hear about it? When did Gu Linshi become such a blabbermouth? Anyway, Chuho said angrily, you shouldn't have kept it from me. Mom, did you recognize her? Gu Chengza suddenly asked. There was silence on the other end for a while. Chuho said, Bai Sheng must have suffered a lot. Yeah. Gu Chengza sighed from the bottom of his heart. No matter what, at least in the future, I won't let her suffer a little. I don't care about the past, but since she's my wife, if anyone dares to bully her again, I won't let them off. After a pause, he sighed with lingering fear. No matter what, it's great to be able to meet her again. I thought I'd never see her again in my life. At that time when he was young, he chased after her car. At that time he did not hesitate to do anything because he felt that if he did not catch up, he might never see her again in his life. He did not expect that there would be such a freak combination of factors. When he recognized her as Bai Sheng, he would never allow himself to let go again. Gu Chengza had been a nostalgic person since he was young. A cup that had been used for 10 years, a blanket that had faded in color, but he still liked to hug it to sleep. A doll that he liked, no matter how old it was, he would still hug it in his arms and love it so much that he could not let it go. Once a nostalgic person fell in love with someone, it would last for a lifetime. Chuho knew that his son was nostalgic, so he did not rush him to get married so quickly. Liking someone was a lifelong thing. Chuho nodded and said, I'm glad you like it. I also like Bai Sheng. You two have been the best since you were young. I'm also happy that you two can be together. Have you thought about when to hold the wedding? Chuho said. Every girl looks forward to their wedding. You married her just like that, and you didn't even promise her when you would get married? Mom, she doesn't seem to recognize me. Gu Chengza sounded a little disappointed. Did she forget about me? A girl's memory is generally not as good as a boy's. Chuho paused and said, Besides, you've changed so much. How could anyone recognize you? Gu Chengza didn't say anything. Clearly, he was still a little disappointed. Bai Sheng had been his goddess since he was young. In fact, many girls in the class liked Gu Chengza, but only Bai Sheng gave her the feeling of bathing in a cool breeze. He liked her and had liked her for years. Unexpectedly, she seemed to have forgotten about him. Gu Chengza said, No matter what, she's my wife now. I'll take good care of her. Chuho sighed. I have to digest it too. Digest what? Chapter 4653. Gu Chengza was silent. Okay, digest it well. With that he hung up the phone. He really didn't know what to do with this mother. Gu Chengza was about to return to his work when his phone rang again. He frowned, stared at the screen and picked up the call. What's wrong? Are you done digesting the fact that you're going to be promoted to a mother-in-law? There was silence on the other end for a while, then an aggressive voice came through. Gu Chengza, right? The tone was extremely arrogant, as if he wanted to eat someone alive. Gu Chengza was confused. He picked up the phone and looked at the screen again, only to find that it was an unknown number. Why aren't you talking? Are you finally scared? Heh. Gu Chengza laughed. Who is this? I'm asking you, is this Gu Chengza? Huh. The voice on the other end was especially arrogant, like a gangster. Gu Chengza confirmed again. Who are you? The call was quickly picked up, and Yi Yuqin's voice came through. Chengza, right? Auntie. Gu Chengza called out after Bai Ran. Don't. I haven't acknowledged you as my niece-in-law yet. Yi Yuqin said arrogantly. You want to acknowledge me as your relative? I haven't agreed to marry Bai Ran to you yet. Then why are you calling me? Are you at work now? Yes. Where's the company? Gu Chengza gave the address almost without hesitation. Shenzhe Building. The elevator goes straight to the 25th floor. Give my name and someone will bring you here. Gu Chengza gave his name, almost without hesitation, which surprised Yi Yuqin. She originally thought that this guy would admit defeat when he heard that she was obviously looking for trouble. In the end, he gave the address so easily. Yi Yuqin was furious. Gu Chengza's taunt had no intention of giving a monetary gift. Yi Yuqin had already promised a few big bosses that she would introduce Bai Ran to them. How big could the so-called big bosses that Yi Yuqin was talking about be? Either they were people who got rich overnight, or they were people whose wives died of illness, or divorced men who remarried. They were not good-looking, but they were rich. On the other side, Yi Yuqin couldn't wait any longer. Hence, she found a hired thug from who knows where to find trouble with Gu Changza. Although Gu Changza was a natural airhead when he was young, he had grown up with Chu Ho and Gu Jinglian, so he still had this bit of awareness. From the phone call, he could vaguely tell that Yi Yuqin had brought people to cause trouble. However, it was not that he was not on guard, but that he was too lazy to be on guard. Shangzhe was his territory. Would he be worried that someone would cause trouble in his own territory? Yi Yuqin probably treated him as an ordinary employee and wanted to cause trouble in his company. Half an hour later, Yi Yuqin really arrived with her people. She walked into the lobby with a burly man. Before she could protect herself, she was led to the floor where the CEO's office was located. When she finally saw Gu Changza in the reception room, Yi Yuqin looked around and smiled coldly at Gu Changza. Haha, I couldn't tell that your workplace is decorated quite grandly. Gu Changza sat on the sofa and smiled slightly as he gestured for them to sit. Chapter 46-54. My boss. Although in a sense he was Shenzhe's boss, strictly speaking he was only the CEO in name. Shenzhe still belonged to Gu Corporation, and the big boss of Gu Corporation was probably cultivating and practicing calligraphy in the Gu mansion. Why do you want him to see you? I have something to ask him. What is it? I just want to ask if he can still keep his employee after doing such an immoral thing. Immoral? Gu Changza was really curious and couldn't help but want to find out. He really wanted to know what kind of immorality Yi Yuqin was talking about. You're a marriage scam. Marriage scam? Gu Changza's lips twitched. You don't have a house or a car. I don't know what kind of tricks you used to trick by you. Nowadays, which family doesn't give a cash gift to buy a house and a car? Gu Changza touched his nose and said, I bought a house and a car, but I haven't seen any cash gifts. He thought of many things Yi Yuqin would say, but he did not expect to be accused of marriage scam. Why did he want to laugh when he heard that? Yi Yuqin continued. Gu Changza, I advise you to be sensible and divorce by you quickly. Otherwise, if this matter gets out of hand, you won't be able to survive in this company. He was really not afraid. At the side, the assistant in charge of serving tea looked at Yi Yuqin coldly. What was wrong with her? Couldn't she speak properly? If she could coax Mr. Gu well, she would have nothing to worry about. Some people's horizons were really too narrow. So much so that Yi Yuqin didn't realize that the humble junior sitting in front of her was actually such a big shot. Gu Changza smiled and nodded. Why should I divorce her? We just got married. Also, I didn't scam her into marriage. Where's the cash gift? Yi Yuqin was aggressive. I didn't even see the cash gift. This marriage doesn't count. Why isn't there a cash gift? Gu Changza's words made Yi Yuqin raise her eyebrows suspiciously. However, he continued, I'll burn the cash gift for uncle and auntie when I have the chance. You don't have to worry about it. Or do you want it to? I don't mind burning you a little. Originally, since they were already married, he planned to pay his respects to her parents with by how after they officially met her parents. However, in Yi Yuqin's ears, it had a different meaning. When Yi Yuqin heard this, she was so angry that she trembled all over. This brat was clearly cursing him. Are you cursing me to die? Gu Changza said innocently, I didn't. It's just that I've never heard that we should give gifts to our uncles and aunts when they get married. I've also never heard that it's customary to buy a house or a car for our uncle's son. Oh, could it be that I'm too outdated? His words were like pearls of wisdom, but they were all reasonable. You? Yi Yuqin stood up angrily. Gu Changza, don't be so shameless. Let me tell you, although I'm Bai Yan's aunt, I'm her guardian. I'm the one who raised her. In ancient times, there was a saying about Yangzhou's thin horses. I wonder if such a thing still exists in the modern world. Chapter 46-55. Skinny horse was an insulting term for women. It meant that they could do whatever they wanted to women, just like how a slave would abuse a weak horse. Why was it called skinny horse? Because the middlemen who engaged in skinny horse breeding would buy young girls from poor families at a low price, raise them, and sell them at a high price. It was the same as how merchants bought skinny horses at a low price, fattened them up, and sold them at a high price. Hence, people called these women skinny horses. During the Ming and Qing dynasties, skinny horse breeding became a lucrative investment, and a large number of people specialized in this profession. They would first invest money to buy beautiful girls from poor families and train them. They would teach them singing and dancing, music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. After they grew up, they would sell them to the rich as concubines or enter brothels to make money. Because most poor girls were thin and weak, the name skinny horse came about. When they first bought a girl, it only cost them a dozen strings of coins. When they got married, they could earn up to 1,500 taels of silver. When the common people saw that there was profit to be made, they would compete to follow suit, and this became the norm. During the Ming Dynasty, Yangzhou's salt merchants monopolized the salt transportation industry in the country, and they were rich. Hence, at that time, skinny horse breeding was the most popular trend in Yangzhou. And Yi Yuqin clearly saw the white horse as a skinny horse. Yi Yuqin did not understand the term skinny horse, but she could clearly see that Gu Cheng's expression had turned cold. I don't care what you're talking about. I'm just asking, are you getting a divorce or not? Divorce? Gu Cheng's smiled. The Gu family has a tradition. Once you marry into the Gu family, there is no such thing as a divorce. Even if there is, it has nothing to do with other people. Unless Jeaner wants to divorce me, there is no such thing as a divorce. Yi Yuqin was so agitated that she stood up from the sofa. She pointed at Gu Chengza and said, "Must you make the situation so ugly? Make a scene?" Gu Chengza raised his eyebrows and said calmly, "May I ask, how do you want to make a scene?" Yi Yuqin could not hold back anymore. She turned around and said arrogantly to Gu Chengza, "Achao, I'll leave it to you." The burly man stood up and relaxed his shoulders. He tilted his head, and his neck made cracking sounds. His sharp gaze was clearly provocative. Gu Chengza caressed the 10,000 countries watch on his wrist and said casually, "Let me give you a piece of advice. Before you offend someone, you should consider if you have the ability to do so." Yi Yuqin snorted coldly. She pointed at Gu Chengza and said to Achao, "What are you still standing there for?" Achao walked towards him. Gu Chengza was still sitting on the chair nonchalantly. Seeing that he still did not seem to care, Chao guessed that Gu Chengza would not give up until he saw the coffin, so he raised his leg abruptly and was about to kick him. Seeing that his foot was about to land on Gu Chengza's face, the bodyguard beside him suddenly reached out and grabbed the man's calf with one hand. Achao was completely caught off guard. He flew out and fell on the coffee table at his waist. He was in so much pain that he grimaced. Yi Yuqin shrunk her shoulders in fear and hid in the corner. Gu Chengza did not move at all. He did not even bother to lift his eyelids. He looked up and glanced at the man who had fallen onto the coffee table. The corners of his lips curled up indifferently. "Throw him out." "Yes, Mr. Gu." Yi Yuqin was stunned when she heard how the bodyguard addressed Gu Chengza. "Mr. Gu? Why did this man call him Mr. Gu?" Chapter 46-56. Before Yi Yuqin could react, the bodyguard grabbed Achao's collar, opened the window, and pushed half of his body out of the window. It was such a tall building. Achao saw from the corner of his eye that he was in the air. He was so frightened that he kept screaming. His body was stiff and he did not dare to move. Yi Yuqin was also stunned, but she did not dare to go closer. Her voice trembled as she said, You're killing someone. Killing someone." "Oh." Gu Chengza raised his eyebrows disapprovingly. "Who saw it?" "You." Yi Yuqin looked at Gu Chengza as he stood up slowly. "Although the Gu family doesn't want to play dirty anymore, if someone comes knocking on my door, then don't blame me for being ruthless." "You?" Yi Yuqin said angrily. "You're breaking the law. Isn't it illegal for you to hire a hitman?" Gu Chengza smirked coldly. "Moreover, you said that I killed someone. The whole building is mine. Who do you think will testify for you? When the time comes, even if the case is closed, the police can only conclude that the person fell by accident and it has nothing to do with the Gu family. At most, I'll burn some paper money for you out of humanitarianism. Consider it as accumulating some good karma." Yi Yuqin shrunk her shoulders in fear and did not dare to say anything else. As it turned out, this Gu Chengza's background was not that simple. Especially when she saw the terrifying aura around him, she believed that he would definitely do what he said. "Don't mess around. The man held down by the bodyguard also started to beg for mercy. I was wrong, I know I was wrong. Let me down, let me down. It's too late. The bodyguard had just finished speaking when he sent him a little further out of the window. This time, except for his legs, most of his body was in the air. Chow was so frightened that he almost peed his pants. He screamed and howled in fear, but he did not dare to kick his legs and struggle. If he was not careful, he was afraid that the bodyguard would not be able to hold him down and he would fall. Who's the one who won't cry until they see the coffin? Gu Chengzi frowned and looked at Yi Yuqin. How have you treated Jiner these past 10 years? I didn't cause you any trouble, but you came knocking on my door. Although Gu Chengzi was adorably silly when he was young, after so many years of teaching by Gu Jinglian, he had inherited Gu Jinglian's imposing manner when he was angry. Yi Yuqin did not dare to speak at all. Her scalp was numb. Chow wrapped his fist in his palm and begged for mercy. Please, put me down. I'll scram right away, I'll scram right away. I beg you. In the future I will never find trouble with you again. The bodyguard turned to look at Gu Chengzi. However, Gu Chengzi said, if I put you down just like that, wouldn't they say that I'm just bluffing? No way. Impossible. I swear. I beg you, I don't want to die. Chow sounded like he was about to cry. Hearing this, Gu Chengzi snorted coldly. Put him down. The bodyguard then pulled the man back through the window and threw him on the ground. The moment he was thrown on the ground, he could no longer hold back his pee and his pants were wet. Gu Chengzi was disgusted when he saw this and said in a low voice, Scram! Yes. I'll scram right away, I'll scram right away. Chow was so frightened that he crawled out on his knees. When Yi Yuqin saw this, she wanted to leave too. She was about to walk to the door when the bodyguard blocked the door, and there was no way out. Chapter 46-57. Yi Yuqin's expression stiffened as she turned around, only to see Gu Chengzi standing behind her with an expressionless face and a cold smirk. Auntie, why do you want to leave? You didn't even say goodbye. Why aren't you staying for lunch? No, there's no need. Yi Yuqin was terrified. She did not know why, but even though Gu Chengzi was standing in front of her with a gentle smile, it gave her a creepy feeling. Some people were scarier when they smiled than when they didn't. Yi Yuqin took half a step back and bumped into the bodyguard's chest. Gu Chengzi saw that she was terrified and slowly took half a step closer. Why, Auntie, are you trembling all over? You were still showing off when you saw me earlier, but now you look like I'm going to eat you up. Yi Yuqin couldn't help but kneel down in front of him. She didn't even dare to look up at his expression. Little Gu, isn't this? Auntie doesn't understand the situation. I just want to give Baizé a good home. I didn't know you were such a capable person. Banyan has suffered so much since she was young, so she's scared of being poor. Of course, my heart aches for her and I hope that she can have a better home. At least the family background should be better, and the car and house should be standard. In my opinion, there must be some kind of misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Gu Chengzi raised his eyebrows and asked, What misunderstanding? Isn't this? I thought you were a scammer? Yi Yuqin said. At that time I thought you were like those men who use flowery words to trick girls. You don't have any ability, but you want to waste the girl's life. But now I see clearly that you are a capable man. Banyan won't suffer if she stays with you, huh? She laughed uneasily, but it looked worse than crying. Gu Chengzi glanced at her contemptuously. So that's what you thought of me? A scam? No, that's not. That's not a misunderstanding. Yi Yuqin frowned bitterly and said, Byran didn't mention your situation to me, so I didn't know. It turns out that your family background is not bad. Since that's the case, I acquiesce in your marriage with Byran. Her words were undoubtedly trying to please Gu Chengzi. However, Gu Chengzi sneered from the bottom of his heart and said disapprovingly, I never thought of getting your permission to marry Byran. Although you are Baihao's legal guardian in name, don't think I don't know how you've treated him all these years. This debt can't be settled just like that. Yi Yuqin shuddered and quickly explained, I treated Baihao well. Her parents died early when she was young, and my living conditions weren't good, but I still insisted on bringing her over to raise her. At that time there was a couple who wanted to buy her for 50,000 yuan. They wanted to bring her home as their daughter. How could I not know that they wanted to bring her home as a child bride? I didn't want to. 50,000. At that time I was sick and had to undergo surgery at home. I owed a lot of debts, but I didn't ask for the money from Wolfheart. Oh really? Chapter 46:58. Gu Chengzi paused and continued. It's just that you didn't want it back then, but that was because you felt that 50,000 was too little. You wanted them to offer 100,000, but the price fell through and they weren't willing. You even pestered them for a while. At that time, someone secretly called the police, so they didn't take Bai Ran away in the end. Yi Yuqin was speechless. Bai Ran knew about these things. She was so young then. Yi Yuqin thought that she didn't know anything. Gu Chengzi continued. Don't tell me that you paid for Bai Ran's college education, heh? Bai Ran did the math. And she said that the money she worked to repay you had been paid off. Yi Yuqin sighed deeply and said despondently. This child, she really wronged me. I wanted her to pay back the money, but actually I wasn't really helping her pay back. I just felt that when a girl grows up, she naturally has to be independent. I kept telling her not to rely on men too much, and to learn to be independent and spend her own money. I wanted to train her to be independent. If that's the case, why did you keep matchmaking her with rich but old men? Gu Chengzi's words were like pearls. Yi Yuqin didn't know how to answer. She was stunned for a long time before she tried to defend herself. I don't think so anymore. What's the use of being independent? Marrying a good husband is the most important thing. Look at me, I've always been earning money to support my family, but with a husband like that, I've been busy for most of my life and didn't have any savings. Now that my son is getting married, I can't even find a wife. My family is so poor. Women can't be compared to men. Having a man to support the family is better than anything else. So you specially pick some nouveau riche men for her? Even if they are all divorced and widowed. I've tested my character first. Yi Yuqin said righteously. Although they are widowed, they are good people and will treat Bai Ran like a treasure. Heh. The more Gu Chengzi listened, the more he wanted to laugh. Bai Ran's aunt was not very cultured, but when she started to quibble, she came up with one thing after another. Gu Chengzi glared at Yi Yuqin in disgust and suddenly lost his patience. When are you going to stop quibbling? Yi Yuqin shuddered from his cold tone and knelt on the ground, trembling. I'm sorry. If you think that it's my fault, then I can't defend myself. Xiaogu, there are times when people's minds. I admit that I was muddle-headed. Being muddle-headed is being muddle-headed because of concern. I love Bai Hua so much that I treat her like my own daughter and dote on her. However, you can't blame me for doing something bad with good intentions. Gu Chengzi clenched his fists. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't have a habit of hitting women, he would have kicked her out of the door. However, just because he didn't make a move, it didn't mean that he couldn't make others move. Gu Chengzi turned around and glanced at the female assistant. He said to her, teach this spouting woman a lesson. He left, Yi Yuqin also wanted to leave. Just as she was about to stand up, the female assistant walked over and grabbed her hair. She pulled her back into the room and slapped her, causing Yi Yuqin to fall to the ground. Slap. The female assistant slapped her again without hesitation. Chapter 46:59. Gu Chengzi did not stop. As he walked further and further away, the sounds behind him became more and more miserable. However, in such a building no one would care. This was his Gu Corporation. When Gu Chengzi returned home, Bai Ran was asleep on the sofa. She was still holding a book in her hands. It was obvious that she had fallen asleep while reading it. The man walked over, picked up the book and put it aside. Bai Ran was startled by his footsteps. She immediately sat up from the sofa and rubbed her sleepy eyes. You're back. Yeah. It's already so late. Only then did Bai Ran react. She was no longer sleepy. She stood up and looked out the window. The sky was still bright. Gu Chengzi was already sitting on the sofa. He held her hand and pulled her into his arms. I came back early today. Bai Ran fell into his arms. She was caught off guard. He rarely touched her on his own initiative. After being married for so long, he had followed the gentleman's agreement before marriage. When he said that he would not touch her, he really did not touch her. He did not force her to do anything. However, this time he took the initiative to hug her. Byran did not feel any repulsion. In fact, she could not help but blush and her heart beat faster. You? Byran felt that the two of them were too close. She was a little shy and could not help but change the topic. Are you back so early because the company is not busy? I missed you, Gu Chengzi said softly. I missed you, so I wanted to come back early to accompany you. He rarely said such romantic words. Byran's heart beat even faster. Actually, she could not stand such mushy words of love. However, she did not know why such superficial words sounded so pleasant when they came out of his mouth. Byran froze in his arms. She did not dare to move. Seeing her body so stiff, Gu Chengzi knew that she was nervous. He laughed and said, Why are you so nervous? She could not say that this was the first time she had been so intimate with someone of the opposite sex since elementary school, right? She was too embarrassed to say it. She pursed her lips and could not say anything. Gu Chengzi did not need her to say anything. Now he just wanted to hug her. When he thought of how Yi Yuqin had treated him, his heart ached even more for her. He wanted to make up for her absence in the past 10 years. After so many years, it seemed that no one had doted on her. There was only scheming. If only I had met you earlier. If he could meet her in university and have a sweet relationship with her, it would be about time for him to get married after graduation. Perhaps at this age, he and she would already have a cute child and a warm and happy family of 3. However, although fate was late, love was not. Gu Chengzi was a very stubborn person. He believed in love, and at the same time he was a very nostalgic person. Bai Yu was the first girl who made his heart move. At that time they were still young and didn't know much about relationships. They were just pure childhood sweethearts. However, as time passed, he missed her even more. Perhaps he had already forgotten her silhouette. If not for the fact that he kept her photo, he would take it out from time to time to look at it when he missed her. However, he could never forget this name. Chapter 4660. Gu Chengzi looked at her carefully. She lowered her eyelids. She was obviously a little shy and did not dare to look into his eyes. After being married for so long, it seemed that he rarely got so close to her. Actually, Bai Sheng could see that Gu Chengzi was restraining himself, especially when he stood at the door of her room every time. He seemed to want to say something but hesitated. He probably felt that it was not appropriate for them to sleep in separate rooms since they were already husband and wife. In terms of feelings and nurturing feelings, if the two of them were lukewarm, it would be difficult to make any progress. Bai Sheng did not reject being a little closer to him, but Gu Chengzi was too gentlemanly. As a girl, she could not be too proactive. However, Gu Chengzi stayed by her side and did not touch anything. It was as if they were in a platonic marriage. She knew that there was a limit to a man's tolerance. He had been holding it in. At first she was uneasy, nervous, and then scared. In the end she started to feel embarrassed. Chengzi, don't speak. Gu Chengzi used a finger to stop her from saying anything. Bai Sheng widened her eyes in confusion and her heart started to beat faster. You? I want to kiss you. Bai Sheng was so scared that she fell silent. Gu Chengzi got closer and closer. At first, she was a little resistant, but Gu Chengzi did not allow her to reject him. He grabbed her wrist and said, This time you're not allowed to reject me. This was clearly the first time he had kissed her. However, Bai Sheng was too embarrassed to reject him. It had to be said that this was Gu Chengzi's black-bellied side. He had endured for so long. He had clearly coveted her for a long time, but he endured it and did not touch her. His restraint and control, except for not wanting to force her, not wanting to scare her, and not wanting to fail at the last step. In the end, he had become a first-class gentleman and lived under the same roof with the person he yearned for, but he did not cross the line at all. In the end, Bai Sheng was the one who felt a little guilty and embarrassed. This way, when he started to take the initiative, she would not have the nerve to reject him. He admitted that such a method seemed a little despicable. He had said that he would wait until she was willing, but if the woman really agreed, with Bai Sheng's introverted personality, she would probably never agree. A woman's greatest reservedness was to not admit it even though she had the same desire in her heart. Thousands of years of tradition had taught women to be reserved and even conservative. As a man he had to be more proactive. Gu Chengzi pinned her down and in the next second, he kissed her without restraint. At that moment when their lips touched, her mind was in a mess. She seemed to have subconsciously accepted him, but what was the reason for that? Was it love? Was love so easy to fall in love with? Responsibility. She didn't think she was that responsible. That was repay him? To repay his kindness? He saved her from the abyss of suffering and gave her a warm home. With this thought in mind, she didn't resist him that much. Bai Sheng did not understand. For as long as she could remember, she didn't seem to have any close friends of the opposite sex. She had an inferiority complex and was antisocial. She always felt that she couldn't repay the kindness of others. Gu Chengze had treated her well, and she wanted to repay him with more? Bai Sheng's thoughts ran wild as he clumsily accepted her kiss. Chapter 46-61. It was also Gu Chengze's first time kissing. Bai Ran was his first woman. He had no experience in dating. Chu Ho had always hated him for not being enlightened in this aspect. He had brought home so many girlfriends his age, but he did not do anything. If he was not her biological son, she would really suspect that something had gone wrong. If Gu Chengze had not patted his chest and assured her of his sexual orientation, she would have really thought that her son liked men. Therefore, although the two of them were kissing, it was not an exaggeration to say that they were fighting. Their teeth collided, as if they were sharpening their knives. Bai Ran could not help but push him away and asked in a questioning tone, "Are you biting me or kissing me?" Towards the end, she could not help but become even more shy. She lowered her head and mumbled a few words. Gu Chengze said, "It's my first time kissing. What about you?" "I don't believe it's your first time kissing." Bai Ran thought that he was lying to her. He was so handsome and had such a good personality. Even if he did not chase girls, there should be many girls chasing after him. How could he not have a girlfriend? When Gu Chengze heard this, his lips curled into a smile. "I never lie. But it's really my first time kissing. You've never been in love." Bai Ran looked as if she had discovered a new continent. No. Gu Chengze felt a little guilty. He really did not have a girlfriend, but why did Bai Ran look like she did not believe him? He quickly explained, "My sexual orientation is normal." Bai Ran could not help but be angry. Who asked if your sexual orientation is normal? Why do you sound like you're trying to hide something by saying this? Because even my biological mother asked me this suspiciously. As Gu Chengze said this, he sat at the side angrily. He recalled how Chu He had summoned him back to the Gu family and interrogated him like he was a criminal. He did not know who she had heard from, but she was now questioning him like he was a criminal. Bai Ran heard this and did not believe it. How is that possible? Your mother. Is she so avant-garde? She could not help but laugh again. Gu Chengze was also extremely helpless. You ruined the atmosphere. Just now the atmosphere was so good. It was fine if she pushed him away, but she actually disrupted such a good atmosphere. Bai Ran felt wronged. You just hit my gums. Oh, you're so stupid you don't even know how to kiss. Could it be that your kissing skills are better than mine? Without a doubt, he was being sarcastic. Bai Ran blushed as well. Her kissing skills weren't any better. Just now there were a few times when she bit his tongue because she was nervous, but he didn't say anything. Why did it feel like she was making a big deal out of nothing? It's all right. Gu Chengze hugged her waist and pulled her into his arms. Let's start over. Things like chemistry can be cultivated slowly. Kissing was a tacit understanding between two people. He didn't mind getting along well with her. Bai Yu nervously pressed her lips against his again. Is it just a kiss? Otherwise. Gu Chengze's gaze was so gentle that she was about to drown in it. What else do you want? No. Are you ready? Gu Chengze suddenly pressed her down on the sofa and gently stroked her hair with his long fingers. After all, we're already married. It's time to fulfill the obligations of a husband and wife. Chapter 46-62. Halfway through her sentence, Bai Ran felt a little guilty. He had given her so much time. Moreover, they were married. Even if they took it a step further, it was perfectly justifiable. His request was not too much. Yi Yuqin even said that Gu Chengze was cheating her into marriage. No matter how she looked at it now, she was the one who was cheating. She was a professional at cheating others into marriage. At the very least, she would give the man some sweetness. However, she could not even touch it. Moreover, she was not a child anymore. Even if it went that far, so what? When Byran thought of this, she immediately put on a heroic look. She carefully separated her hands and gently held her shoulders like a shy rose waiting to bloom. She blushed and said softly, "If you really want one, then can you go back to the room first?" Her voice became softer and softer. She wanted to bury her smiling face in his chest and did not dare to look up at him. Gu Chengze was stunned and did not know whether to laugh or cry. No matter how he looked at it, she looked like a female slave who sacrificed herself to the male lead in order to repay a debt of gratitude. However, what he wanted was not to repay a debt of gratitude. He knew that this little girl was extremely simple-minded. If others treated her well, she would only treat them better. She probably felt that she could not repay him with anything, so she would not be stingy with anything she could give. She was clearly so scared. "Don't think too much." Gu Chengze gently scratched her nose. "Why are you so scared? I won't eat you. I kissed you today because I couldn't help it. Unless you're willing, I won't force you to do anything you don't want to." Byran looked up in surprise. Even at this moment, this man was still indulging her? How could she not feel that a certain part of the man was ready to explode? However, he could still hold it in and was willing to hold it in. Since she was young, no one had ever doted on her like this. Gu Chengze was about to get up when Byran suddenly hugged his shoulders. His body sank down again. The two of them were extremely compatible. "I'm willing." Bai Hao was timid as he struggled to say those words. Gu Chengze looked at her. She also opened her eyes. Her eyes were clear and bright. I don't think I'm forcing myself. It's just that I haven't experienced it before, so I'm a little nervous. I'm willing. I'm not forcing myself." For someone as thin-skinned as her, such words were undoubtedly a warm invitation. As if she was afraid that Gu Chengze would not believe her, she reached out with trembling hands, grabbed his collar, and started to unbutton his shirt bit by bit. Her movements were a little clumsy. At first, she slipped on the first button because her fingertips were sweaty. She bit her lip and patiently comforted herself that this was just the most common process between husband and wife. Sooner or later, she would have to get used to it. After all, from the beginning of their marriage, her plan was to work hard to be with this man until the end. Since they had never thought of getting a divorce, they would have to go through the normal process of being a married couple sooner or later, wouldn't they? Bai Qian was halfway through when Gu Chengze suddenly grabbed her hand. His eyes were filled with forbearance and doubt. "You really won't force it?" Bai Kun shook his head. "No." Chapter 46-63. Gu Chengze hugged her and carried her into his bedroom. All this time, the two of them had been sleeping separately. He slept in his room and she slept in the other room. All this time, she had never stepped into his room. This seemed to be the first time she had entered his room. It was a huge room with a bed and a wardrobe. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows was a balcony that served as a bustling night market. The next second, she was thrown onto the bed. His bed was extremely soft. Her body bounced slightly, and the next second he was on top of her. Everything started with instinct. Her body felt like it was filled with magma. It was boiling hot and almost burned her. After having her once, he finally stopped. When she woke up again, it was already dawn. She did not sleep very well. For the first time, she could only feel pain. Although he was very gentle, the pillow was still wet. Oh no, she still had to go to work tomorrow. Byran opened her tired eyes. She did not have any extra energy to think about tomorrow. In the morning at 10 o'clock, Byran's phone rang crazily. Gu Chengze was the first to wake up. He muted the ringtone and saw that the caller ID was Team Leader. He thought that it was her boss calling. Oh right, how could he forget that she had to go to work today? Did he go too far yesterday? She was still buried in his arms, sleeping soundly. Gu Chengze picked up the call. On the other end, a woman's angry voice could be heard. "It's 10 o'clock, Byran. Are you still planning to come to work? Give me an explanation." "Sorry, Byran is sick today and can't go to work. There's a reason for this, so I didn't ask for leave. I'm very sorry." On the other end, the woman was stunned. She asked blankly, "You are?" "I'm Byran's husband." "Oh, Byran is sick?" "Yes." "Then why didn't you ask for leave in advance?" Gu Chengze laughed. "Excuse me, who can predict that they will fall sick? Byran wanted to go to work today but I stopped her. She has a high fever so she can't go. Oh. I want to ask for leave for her. How many days? A week. A week. What fever would take a week? If you take a week off, it won't count as full attendance. You can take a day off at most. Moreover, if you don't pass the approval of the leaders, your salary will be deducted. Deduct as much as you like. If he wasn't feeling well, he couldn't force himself to go to work. Is your company a vampire? As he spoke, Gu Chengze did not give her any face and hung up the phone. On the phone there were many alarms. The alarm went off, but neither of them woke up. Gu Chengze hung up the phone and put it under the pillow. He hugged her and went back to sleep. In the afternoon, Bai Hao slowly woke up. As soon as he opened his eyes, he felt a tearing pain in his thigh. Although it didn't feel like being run over by a heavy truck, it was still a tearing pain. With just a slight movement, his nerves felt as if they were sealed by cement, sore and swollen. Byran grimaced in pain. Suddenly, he thought of something and immediately fumbled for his phone under the pillow. When he reached for his phone, he realized that the screen was black. Out of power? She pressed the power button suspiciously, and the phone lit up. However, when it finally turned on, she looked at the time and felt uncomfortable. Chapter 46-64. Without realizing it, she had already slept so late? Byran was annoyed. She saw that there were many messages on WeChat and clicked on them. Then she saw a dialogue box from her team leader. Byran, are you doing this on purpose? You didn't ask for leave, so you let an outsider do it. Your husband's leave doesn't count. Today, I'll treat it as absenteeism. Please come to work on time tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll treat it as absenteeism. Byran's lips twitched. She clicked on recent calls. There was a call record, but it was obvious that she did not pick it up. It was him. Byran looked at Gu Chengze resentfully. He was sleeping quietly and had not woken up yet. How could he sleep better than her? With the intention of teasing him, Bai Yan gently poked his cheek with his finger. The latter frowned and raised his hand to hold her finger. He opened his eyes and looked at her with his slightly misty eyes. Byran did not expect him to wake up so quickly. She turned her face away awkwardly and hugged the blanket tightly. The scene from yesterday appeared in front of her eyes again. She and this man, they were husband and wife. She patted her forehead in annoyance and her face heated up. Gu Chengze sat up from the bed and hugged her gently from behind. He rested his chin on her shoulder and hugged her tightly. You're awake. Byran only responded with an He liked her soft voice and could not help but lean closer to her. The scorching heat from his chest made her blush again. Byran lowered her head even more. She hugged the blanket tightly, but before she could say anything, her stomach made a grumble sound. Growl. Gu Chengze looked up and became more awake. Are you hungry? What do you want to eat? Anything. There are still some eggs and bread at home. After a pause, Gu Chengze asked, I'll cook a poached egg for you, Although she was shy to face him, she still mustered up the courage to ask, Do you know how to make sweets? The kind that's soft and fluffy? Yes. Gu Chengze kissed her earlobe. I'll make them for you. With that, he got off the bed. Bai Yu immediately covered his eyes in embarrassment. He didn't even dare to look at him naked. Gu Chengze looked at her bashful expression as he tied the belt of his nightgown. He could not help but chuckle, but it was because he doted on her. All right, I'm dressed. Bai Kun put his hands down, but he did not know where to place them. He could only lower his head and make a sound of acknowledgement. The redness on his face had already spread to the base of his neck. Gu Chengze entered the kitchen. Even though he was quite a distance away from the kitchen, when she heard the sound of the kitchen hood being turned on, she could imagine Gu Chengze in a bathrobe cooking elegantly in the kitchen. Her heart was filled with warmth. However, what exactly did he say to the team leader that made her so angry? The team leader was already going through menopause. He also knew that he had said something that had angered her. He felt that she would definitely be severely criticized when she went to work. It's done. Half an hour later, Gu Chengze personally brought the poached eggs in. How could he not understand her embarrassment? His legs must be so sore. He set up the table on the bed and placed the bowl and chopsticks in front of her. Chapter 4665. Stop messing around. Get out of bed and walk around. Just eat on the bed. Bai Yan was even more embarrassed. Somehow, she felt that there was a hint of playfulness in his tone, as if he had seen through some of her embarrassment. Could it be that this man knew that her legs were sore and swollen, so he didn't want her to get out of bed? What's wrong? Gu Chengzi sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her. Why aren't you eating? Aren't you hungry? Bai Yan was a little confused. You should eat something too. No hurry. I'll eat when you're full. There was a hidden meaning in his words. But Bai Yan obviously didn't understand. In front of Gu Chengzi, the big bad wolf, she was like an ignorant little white rabbit. She silently grabbed the chopsticks, grabbed the bread, dipped it in some jam and took a bite. The soft bread paired with the sweet jam was delicious. She was so happy that she felt like she was going to melt. His cooking was so good that he could bake the bread to such a good texture. Is it good? Yeah. As Bai Yan ate, she felt his gaze on her from beginning to end. She shrunk her shoulders awkwardly. Today. She hesitated, not knowing if she should ask. Yeah? What's wrong? Team leader called me this morning. Were you the one who answered? Yeah. How did you answer her? What's wrong? Gu Chengzi said. I forgot too. She seemed very angry. Gu Chengzi frowned and replied. I said you were sick and needed to take a week off. She said that the company doesn't have such a long sick leave. Then you got angry at her? Angry? Gu Chengzi touched his chin and said honestly, I didn't get angry, right? Why? Did she scold you? Bai Yan silently raised her phone and showed him the WeChat message that team leader had sent her. Gu Chengzi took the phone and glanced at it. Team leader's message. Bai Yan, did you do it on purpose? You didn't ask for leave, so you let an outsider do it. Your husband's leave doesn't count. Today you'll be punished as absenteeism. Please come to work on time tomorrow. Otherwise, you'll be punished as absenteeism. Absenteeism? Gu Chengzi smiled. Sure, it's best if you fire her directly. Hey. Bai Yu looked at him reproachfully. It's not easy to find a job now. You can't wait for me to be fired. However, Gu Chengzi put his arm around her shoulder and said confidently, when you're fired, I'll have a reason to support you. Bai Yu blushed, but he was unwilling. I don't want you to raise me. Girls should be independent and not rely on men to support them. Do you often read chicken soup articles on WeChat? Huh. For example, men are unreliable. Women only have a few years of youth, and they should be used to fight and struggle. Youth alone can't tie down a man's heart. When a person's pearls turn yellow, they will have no value. In the end, women who rely on men for a living will be eliminated by society. Oh, how did he know? She had indeed read such chicken soup stories before. Gu Chengzi raised his brows unhappily. What? Do you think I'm that kind of scumbag in the chicken soup novel? No. Or are you completely insecure? Sense of security. Bai Yan nodded hesitantly. She really didn't feel safe. He always felt that he was the only one who could be relied on.